going to shorten the video from the last one, and I'll shorten it to this one. So, first introduction. My name is Mage. I play games. I read mangas. I read manhwas. I read manhuas. Um, and I read manhwas. So, manhwa, manhua, manga, and gaming. And I do this to see if they're worth purchasing, if they're worth reading, if they're worth continuing, and either something to do to consider for a pastime or something to do as part of your career as an artist or a pursuit in one of these fields. So it's not simply about gaming and reading about stuff, but actually assessing the product to see is something that you want to work investing in your time in to purchase for your own enjoyment, or your time in to purchase to evaluate how certain artists do certain things in order to execute a product that they want to distribute for the fans, or what do they believe the audience might find interesting in their content. And that's what I do when I play games and when I evaluate stuff and when I do builds, what can work best. So that said, moving forward, the first of the after I introduced the first three videos, these are the three that I took from the past six and seven different mangas I read through. After I selected many from the past 3 months of the summer of 2022, and out of those six, only three was up to par. Only three made it, and those three are Stage Six. I butchered the name the first time. I called it Side Six, but it's Stage S. I even call it Stage Six as well, but it's actually called Stage S. It's a manga. You would get the name wrong. You would think it's many different names, but it's actually called Stage S. You really have to let your brain remember that, because it's a very simple name to say, Stage S. But there are so many things that have double names or have similar soundings to them that you could get it confused sometimes. So it's called Stage S. That's the first one. The first one I'm going to talk about, and the next one is called Aliens Area, and the next one after that is a hero's guide to a hero survival guide. It's not two or anything. It's just called a hero's survival guide. So those are two mangas, Stage S and um, Aliens Area, and the third one is a Manhua, 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 and there was no manhwa for this month for that you could read for this month, because they weren't that good, and there's a lot of stuff going out there that's mostly questionable, and what's worth it and what's not worth it. Plus, they couldn't hold my attention past probably like 5 minutes for me to continue reading, but these ones can. So, Stage S was made by the artist Tomoya Harikawa, and an artist survival guide by the Manhua artist was is still unknown, or at least I've searched online to find the name of the artist, but it's unknown, or at least no one has the translation of the artist's name. Maybe they're keeping themselves hush hush and secret. Um, and the artist for Aliens Era is Naba Fusai. That's Nabafusai, and the name for the Stage S artist was Harikawa Tomoya, H Harikawatomoya. So getting straight into it, this first one is Stage S. So if you like this video, if you consider to go all the way through, I won't beat around the bush. I'll get straight to it. But I had to introduce the name of the people who made it, why I do the video, and all that good stuff. All that like and subscribe stuff will come at the end if you're interested. And if you want to continue watching stuff like this, I usually make animes and stuff that's separate from this, that comes out like once every month. Manga stuff is something that comes out like once every 3 months or something. But getting straight into this, Stage S, this is the first one. So this is the first page that I decided to post for Stage S, and it says clearly. A number of missing persons in Tokyo has reportedly rise sharply this year, more than half of whom are still being searched for. So that's one thing to consider in regards to the story, and that will play a major factor going forward in the story itself. The next thing that it shows is these are all broadcasts. So when you're creating a manga or you're creating a manhwa or even a comic, if you're trying to do broadcasts to show like a radio or a phone or anything that's going on to express that something is said from another angle, not from the mind, not from someone's word, or not from another individual, you put it like speaker sounding, like a frequency. You put like frequency wave around the curves of your artwork. So these are the frequency wave around the curve of the artwork. So that's something that you should consider when you're putting text on something to state that someone or something is saying what is being stated, but it's not verbally being stated or in the mind of the person. It's something that's very from somewhere else or from someone else or from somewhere else, but it's not the mind of the character and it's not the physical words of the character. So these are words from a radio that's being shown here. And then the next scene goes into the radio says that it's going to be a very blue sky today, and we get straight into it. This is the main character, and his name is Ukiyo. Meguru. That's specifically his name. So Ukiyo is sitting in his classroom. No blue sky today. He said, "What blue sky?" And he's just looking out. He doesn't understand what the radio people are talking about. The broadcast was talking about various different incidences, so on and so forth, the standard news stuff. And then it went straight to weather forecasting, and he started talking about blue sky. He doesn't see any blue sky. The animation on the character is good. Proportions of the eyes is kind of off, but if you were talking about his head leaning forward at this angle right here, you would then just tilt your head to look at his eyes and his face from that angle, and the proportion of both the top eyes and the lower eyes are balanced quite well. However, the proportion of distance between this and this is kind of off. Like if you wanted to make the eyes look equally based on the angle, he would probably have to put in the lines towards the nose a little bit further inwards to get that balancing effect. But if he wants to put this eyes close to this nose, then this eye will have to be much closer here rather than further here, because as the head is turning. So that's one thing to understand. So moving forward more into the story, there are many other things as well, but I won't get into those. So moving forward into the story, we then learn that his parents had died and he's by himself. Is he really by himself, or he's staying with a grandmother or something? Nothing is explained so far. We dive into the story. His parents died. The text is shown on the left and right to show the parents of their faces, and the roses right here, so on and so forth. You typically put this to the left and right of an image rather than the top or bottom, simply because you want to show exactly what it is that the person is saying without interrupting the image itself. So it's best to have them on both sides. So you move into that, then he keeps talking about his family, his life, and about does he believe in God or not. And he says, I don't believe in God. If God existed, my mother and father would not have died. And then moving on from that, he then said, I do believe in God, but I do believe in God. But now in this moment, at least in this moment, as he's going on in his life, I do believe in God. So his parents died at a very early age, and as he was getting older, his childhood friend, we will learn soon to be called Sara, has been with him for quite some time since his parents died. So he's been raised by whoever else, and assuming that he's not living by himself, because how could a kid do? So he's probably with someone else, or maybe he's with Sara's parents. I doubt it. He's probably staying with someone, but it's not explained. But he's been growing up being friends with Sara, and in this moment he believes in God because Sara is his rock, basically what keeps him alive, what keeps him moving. And it happened like I guess when they were kids at the funeral. Sara was there, but Sara was probably somebody he knew as a kid way before his parents died. It's not just a kid that he knew from the funeral. So Sara Tatsumi is her name. And then moving on from that, he just basically he narrates to the audience that he's now dating this character. This will come in later on into the story of why this is all relevant. But he's just giving a good idea or a good glimpse into his relationship with this character versus what happened to him in the past. And moving on from that, we now see him saying bye to Sara. He's saying he's so happy that he met Sara and he's still with Sara. And then you see this letter of this creature on the lower left. He says, well, look what the cat dragged in. So here you start to get a close idea, or at least somewhat of an idea, what might be going on, why it's called Site S. Now, at the beginning of the manga, it doesn't show anything with regards to what this creature is. This is revealed in this manga right here, that creature is a god, and he found it at a praying location way back in the days. I shouldn't say way back in the days, probably about a year or two ago, who knows, when he was just traveling down the road with Sara, as typically as usual, but decided to go on his way one day, and then found this creature inside of a shrine. And he's remembering it from way back, and him finding this creature inside this shrine sleeping, and the snake came out and started to speak to him. He never met a talking snake before, but it wasn't a typical regular snake. This snake had like this little tail thing over his head, and it didn't have eyes like a regular snake eyes. It had more like a human eyes. So it wasn't normal from the get-go. But what I would say with regards to this is that one of the bad things that's to take away from this manga is that when you're doing stuff reflecting in the past, and you put these type of dotted hatches on a character to show that it's representing the past, then you have to do that on top of everything. You kind of have to put that little shadow over everything, because if you put like the shrine and everything in the here and now, it will look like it's in the here and now. He's not talking about his past. But if you just put it over him, all these little lines over him to represent the past, him going back in the past, it will look like he's traveling in the past rather than him being in the past, and this being in the present. So it'll be like two things that aren't aligned and conjoined with each other. It'll throw the reader off, and you would have to figure it out for yourself that, oh, he's talking about the past, but the lineup from transition of past to current won't be as smooth, because you will have a sense of confusion that, well, what is clean and what is actually past. So basically the snake creature tells him, I can predict the future. He says, prove it. Boom. He shows him, he tells him his math score. He'll whip out his final exam math score for Yukiko and Meguru. He shows him everything, his math, his English, his history, everything he did from his final exam. He got it all right. So it's not like the creature actually took it from him or anything. How would he know that? He basically said, because I'm a god, I could predict the future. I could see the future and present it to me. That's my job. I can see the future. I can't reason the future. I can't change the future. I can only see the future. So that's something that's also going to become present. Later, he then says, as he's sitting next to Ukiyo, and the name of this snake is called Shirohebi. The name of the snake is Shirohebi. He's a god. Not sure what type of god he is. He's not like a death god, but like something from Death Note. Right? He's just a god that kind of doesn't grant wishes or any of that stuff. It's just a god that knows the future and has specific powers. So knowing the future, he tells him, you're going to die soon. And he said, when? And he said, what type? It says traffic accident. And he asked him when. It's like, sometime soon. And he said, like, when soon? It's like, it only shows me that you're going to die from a traffic accident. And a couple, I guess he says a day or two from now, because he could tell, the god can tell the day and I guess the time and everything else that's happening, when it happens, where it happens, but he can't figure out the reasoning of why it would happen. He can only see it as it's happening and estimate the actual time and date and so on when it happens. So he tells him this. He accepted, I guess you could say Ukiyo accepted his faith to stay calm, and he like basically Shirohebi says, well, you kind of calm for something, hearing that you're about to die. And he said, well, I kind of figured, based on my life being so happy, that things are in life are a give and take. I've learned that from the death of my parents. In order for me to be alive, they had to die. So this kid, Ukiyo, really has this type of mentality of life is simply based on give and take. Like if you do something for your benefit, it'll be taken from someone else. Or if you're about to sacrifice yourself for the safety of someone else, that person gets to live while your life is snuffed out. So he believes in the give and take logic of life. Not many people believe in that whatsoever at all. But that's his mentality. He's a very dark-minded kid. You know, I guess after what happened with his parents, he kind of give up on the logic of thinking positively. He just thinks in it is what it is type of mentality. So he only enjoys the here and now with what is present and what he values to him. But in all truth, even though he's more like that dark-minded individual, he does have something that's more positive than all of that, and that's his connection towards Sara. She is the only thing, or should I say, the only reason why he's still alive. I have this strange feeling if Sara wasn't present when he was a kid, he would have gone down a very dark path in his life. I don't know, drugs, money, theft, probably suicide, whatever it is. But Sara was his basically a reason for continuing his life. So that said, he decided to have a night out with Sara, or a day, depending on the type of uh, day this is. This could be early morning or early afternoon. It's not present that it's night, so because it's not dark, so it's just showing that it's sometime during the day or the afternoon. So we're based on this. It's an assumption that it's still daytime, like morning time, not afternoon, because there would have been a little bit more shade, and if it's night, it would have been pure dark. Um, so it's morning time. We're assuming it's morning going into afternoon or early afternoon time. So that said, he has his day out with Sara, and then he breaks up with Sara. And he breaks up with Sara because he knows he's going to die. And he doesn't want to be around Sara when that happens because he might be putting her in danger. Um, he really don't want her to know what's going to happen to him, because if he tells her what's going to happen to him, she's going to go out of her way to try to save him, so that it doesn't happen to him, which will then put her in danger because she will now be around the person that's fated to die anyway. So he breaks up with her, and he stands out. I guess later that day he stands out in the rain, and it's nighttime, or it could be afternoon time, and it's just a storm that's coming in that clouds up the sky. So he breaks up with her, and he's standing in the rain. He's looking up in the sky. A good design angle, anyway, to show the face looking up, the nose, and under the chin. It's very well done. And then you see him sitting here, and he's sitting on this stool, and then this child come out of nowhere, sitting on the stool by this bus stop. And you know it's a bus stop because this typical old-fashioned, typical standards is bus stop or service stop usually have a sitting area and a presentation board to say that this is a service stop, and they have something over it, so you kind of know that it's a service stop. They usually have like a little roof over it, so that's what it is. He's at a service stop or bus stop or something like that. And then this little girl coming out of the rain, much younger than he is, stopped there in order to catch the bus as well, waiting for the bus. So he's not paying attention to her whatsoever. He's just depressed of his situation and what happened in his life, so on and so forth. And he just looked on the ground. He saw that the rain that's coming down is no longer rain. It's actually oil that's dropping down from the sky. And the little girl doesn't see this. Maybe it's because she's not concentrating on that whatsoever. She's in her head. She's the little girl. But he managed to see this, and lo and behold, yeah, this happens. It swerves on top of the oil and goes directly towards him, or should I say directly towards them. And to make sure that nothing happens to the child, he does what any normal human being would do to make sure the child has in safety and not die from running over by a truck. He pushes her out the way. It's unknown if she's alive or not, but he tries to save her, and in the process, he ends up dying. The vehicle run him over or explode and hit him. There's no presentation of how he died. It's just he died. He showed up in the location where Shirohebi is, and Shirohebi says, "Good morning. Thank you for waking up." Blah blah blah. And tells him that okay. So he says, "I died." He says, "Yes." Is the kid safe? He says the kid is safe. She just had minor bruises. He said that's good. Well, at least I had fun in life when I can. I'm going through the pearl gates. Can you tell me at least about Sarah's faith, her life? What happens to Sarah's future since I'm never going to see her again? At least let me understand. Give me one last favor before I go through those pearly gates of heaven and stuff. And he says, sure, sure, I'll tell you. And then he shows him this. And he said, what? Why? He's like, what happened? Oh, she was killed. Um, it's like, what? Killed by who? This god called Kurohibe. Um, it's like he's killed. She was killed by a guard, not by a mugger or by a fanatic or by an accident, just like him. She was just killed off by a god of all things. Yeah, it's like he said, yeah, and this god decided to kill her. He's like, what? Well, was it something voluntary? Did he voluntarily kill her, or was it unintentional? So sure, Hebe doesn't say any of that stuff. He say, I can't know the reasons why the god do stuff. I can only see the future. The same thing he's always said. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot. You can't understand why that god decided to do it. You can only know that the god decided to do it. And that goes back to the beginning of the first page that I showed with regards to the story itself. Back to the very beginning where it says the number of missing persons has reportedly risen sharply this year, more than half of whom still being searched. So whatever is happening is associated with Shirohibe. And Shirohibe is partly responsible for all these missing people. And the reason why that is unknown to us at the moment with regards to this manga. All we know is that he Ukiyo died, and after Ukiyo died, he passed into the afterlife, and he's here, and he asks about Sara, and he finds out that Sarah is dead, and that Sara was killed by the god called Kurohibe. And in stage 6, I guess this is going to play a huge part in the future of this manga by stating what Kurohibe is and why he's doing what he's doing. That's not going to explain from the point of view of Shirohibe because he can't understand reasoning things. So he desperately tries to find a way to get back into the human world. Shirohibe says that's impossible. Once you're dead, you're dead. Person cannot come back to life unless a god decides they should come back to life. And in order for that to happen, you must do the law of equivalent exchange, which is you must make a contract with me in order for me to bring you back to life. But you must do something for me in order for me to bring you back to life so you could try to save your girlfriend. If I'm going to bring you back to life so you could try to save your girlfriend, you have to do something for me in return. So he basically do that, okay, I'll do this for you, but you have to do something that I want. And he said, well, what is it that you want? I want you to kill Kurohibe for me. And I'll grant you the power in order for you to change your faith and to try to kill Kurohibe. Now he says, he doesn't say that I'm going to give you the power, grant you the power to kill Kurohibe. He says, if you agree to kill Kurohibe for me, I will grant you the power to change faith. He didn't say he's going to give him the power to kill Kurohibe. He's going to give him the power to change his faith. Whether he can or cannot kill Kurohibe with the power he's granted is a totally different story. So he agrees, not paying attention to what Shirohibe is saying, agrees, because all he wants to do is change the fate so Sara doesn't die. He doesn't care really what Shirohibe wants. He just wants to save Sara. That's Shirohibe's objective, not his. and it'll state so later into the manga. So he's revived from the dead. Basically, comes up like the Night of the Living Dead zombies, pushing himself through the floor, remembering and reflecting on how he was a kid, how his parents died, and how they buried him. It's strange that he remembered this as he's crawling out of the ground, or as he's being revived back to life, and remember himself as a boy, and his parents got in the way to block from the traffic accident. Um, the father was in the front, the mother was at the back. Or I'm assuming that it was the side. Yeah, the mother was at the back, the father was at the front, and yeah, that's all there is to it. But here's something that I find very strange, that I don't know the details with regards to this. That you will have to probably jump in and read the manga further into many more chapters and many more manga issues. This is obviously not him, not Ukiyo, sitting right here. And this is you can say this could be her right here with the hairstyle, but this is obviously not him. So either he's holding a ball in front of his face, or there's something in front of him, um, or an object that's directly in front of him, but this is not him. This is not him sitting here. And it's assumed that this is his father and his mother's in the back seat. So it's stated that his mother and his father died. So who the hell is this over here? So I don't know. There's many things that you have to figure out, but that's not the reason for what's going on. What's going on is this guy just turned into a Night of the Living Dead out of nowhere. He crawled out the floor, um, remembering his past, and now he's straight up zombie city. His blood, his everything starts to form back. His flesh started to form back onto his body, which lead me to believe that when he got run over by the truck, he didn't just get run over and his bones were crushed or anything like that. That truck probably exploded as well, because that was oil falling from the sky. So it not only slipped on the oil and slammed right into him, it probably exploded after a fire as well, blowing him to pieces. But it doesn't the manga doesn't show that as well. So you have to like assess it and come to your own conclusions based on that. So he's now back to his regular form. His body is fully human in form, by Shirohebi's powers. Shirohebe asks him, how you feel? He says, I'm fine. He asks, where are you? I said, Shirohebe says, I'm actually resting inside of your dead body, because he's actually technically still dead, but he's actually alive. He's not 100% alive, but he's considered to be dead. Um, he's like a zombie, but at the same time he's not a zombie. In fact, he's beyond that of a zombie, and later into further chapters you will see why. So this is all nicely set. This is all nicely present. He then asks, "Where can I find Kurohibe? Since I have this power now, I'm alive." It's like, "Oh, just look up. He's above you." And he looked up, and that's Kurohibe. Yes, it's just a huge black thing in the air, like smoke, huge black smoke in the air. But it really isn't huge black smoke. It's just the creature Kurohibe is so huge that's just a part of its body. So it's like smoke, moving smoke in the air. Um, it's very much like Shirohibe, but it's beyond Shirohibe's size by miles. And that's just me speculating. There's nothing to show to state that the black snake that he calls it is actually a gigantic snake that's beyond human size, a ridiculous size, that you just see a section of its body. That's just this assumption that that's what it is. So this is most likely the smoke section of his body. So he looks up, he asks, "What the hell is that?" And he says, "That's Kurohibe." Human beings can't see it, but he's always there. So Kurohibe here is always present. He's present in the morning time. He's present in the afternoon time. He's present in the evening time. He's always there. He's present at nighttime and then back again to morning. He's always present on the planet Earth. You just cannot see him because it's not meant for human beings to see his eyes. So this actual thing that goes about killing people is something that was always present and always there. However, it did say at the beginning of the very beginning of the manga that the amount of missing people has risen this year by an alarming amount, which means that Kurohibe probably just showed up this year, whereas every other year it was standard, kidnapping from regular people. That this is an event that just happened this year and this year alone. Um, why it's happening is unknown. Only Kurohibe, Shirohibe, and whoever, if they're more powerful beings than them, probably allow these things to happen. But it's unknown as of right now. All you know is that Kurohibe is a giant thing in the sky, and that he's in charge of many sub creatures or demonic type creatures. Um, I wouldn't even call them demonic, but the sub creatures that he could summon at any time. Things that are vastly smaller than him and less powerful than he is, but are servants to him in one way or another. So they attacked. They all attacked Ukiyo, but they're kind of dumb because they don't know that Shirohige is attached to him, or they do know that Shirohige is attached to him. Maybe that's the reason why they attacked him. Either way, because he have the power that Shirohige gives now, he just dispatched him easy. His arm turned into some type of freakish tornado that can extend past itself and devour anything. So it's expressed that it's not just squeezing these creatures to death. That is also his hand is also devouring them as well. So that's kind of gross and weird, but it doesn't show the devour. It just shows that they've been crushed to death or squeezed to death. Um, yeah, and he says basically I'm kind of a monster, and he says yeah, that's how human beings will see it. That you are no longer can be considered yourself human, since you are able to do unnatural things. You look human, but you're not a human anymore. So get that out of your mind that you're a human anymore, because anything that you do from now on won't fall into the logic of you doing as being a human. So if you decide to eat 1,001 Twinkies, you won't fall over and heel over and get a heart attack or have to go to the hospital because your digestive system don't work the same way anymore. Basically, that's what he's telling him. A good example of this is he start licking his hands. Normally, if you start to lick the blood off your hands from getting cut or slashed or something, obviously you're a weirdo, plain and simple. But in his case, licking the blood off his hands, like using the saliva from his mouth to lick the cut, seal the cut on his hands, or at least makes the blood disappear. So it's weird that way he's whatever he considers himself to be, even his behavior, his normal behavior, is no longer fully under his control. You could say it's partly Shirohibe's um, doing that he doesn't behave like a normal human being anymore. But it could be that he's always been this way. It's just that he's never been in a circumstance that push him to this level to do these things. So eventually, Sara pops out of nowhere and coming to pray to his dead body that she assumed is dead in the grave. And it's expressed in later chapters that it's been 10 days since he originally died. So this is 10 days already have passed. Could be 9 days, 9 to 10 days that have passed that he was dead. And she's there to pray to his dead body, or assuming that he's dead, and she sees him, and she collapsed to the floor, uh, and he confesses his love to her, that he always loved her, so on and so forth. It took him this long to confess. It took him to actually die to confess, and then these things start to show up at the background, because they're tracking him, because he has Shirohebe inside of him, and they could pick up on his aura because of Shirohebe is in him. So she's now in danger, and he knows this, so he has to take care of them. So after telling her that he loves her, he goes about his business. He takes care of those fools. They all died, and then Sara went about her business as well. So he basically admit that he'll meet her at some other time, at some other place, but he had to sort certain things out. He doesn't want to tell her exactly what happened. He's leaving that in the dark. Um, so basically, he says it right here. I don't think I'll ever accept the death of somebody I love. And of course, that goes for Sara as well. So this is a major thing to remember with regards to this manga, a major one, because she would not accept that he is dead, and he will not accept that she is dead. So whatever he was feeling when he's dead, when he saw that Sara was going to be killed 100 days from now, and that's 100 days from the time that he actually saw that she was dead, based on Shirohebi's prediction, um, to where he is now, that's something to consider as well. That she would never let him just die like that without doing something to undo that. At least that's what it's trying to say here. Of course, that goes for Sara as too. I don't think I'll ever accept the death of somebody I love. So either Sara is in denial of coming to his grave, praying to him, even though she probably ID'd him at a morgue or something, um, in denial that he's not dead. Yet she still comes to his grave to pray to him, but she doesn't believe that he's dead. And maybe something else happened. Maybe there's something hidden that we don't see. Maybe she decided to do a supernatural thing. And if anyone has ever seen the show Supernatural, spoiler alert, very important spoiler alert. So plug your ears if you don't want to hear about this, if you've never seen Supernatural. So you've been warned. Plug your ears. There are two brothers on that show. One of them is called Sam. One of them is called Dean. Giving spoilers now to something else. And I'm relating it to this because it's very important. Very important. What Sam did, Sam, after he realized Dean died in season 3, he decided to, well, do what anyone would do in season 3. If you care about that much about your brother, I can't see him dead. He decided to make a contract with a demon, Ruby, in order for him to bring her brother back. Now, I could be 100% wrong because it's been years since I've seen that show, but it was stated that Sam made a contract in order to bring Dean back from the dead. But that wasn't the case. That's why I'm saying it's spoiler. That didn't happen. Dean went to hell, and he was resurrected by someone else. It wasn't Sam. He didn't make any contract. Dean assumed that Sam made the contract, but it wasn't Sam. It was an angel that did it. There was no contract made whatsoever. So, what can be stated with regards to that is what Sara is doing the same as what Dean assumes Sam did, or is she actually going to legitimately do it? Because in that show, Supernatural was totally wrong. He never made a contract. It was something that someone else does, some freaky thing that someone else does. I won't explain what that is. Or did Sara literally made some type of agreement so that he could come back to life? It is shown that it's going to assume, if it's going down this route, that that's what happened. But we all know that he accepted to be revived. It had nothing to do with her. But what she did on her own time is a totally different story. So it's very important to understand that what he said right here, and what is very, very important, because it could possibly be more than just what he believes. It could actually be factual. So moving on into the story more, let's put that aside. All right, you did say you had no memories. So another important thing to remember, and it's very important. There are many things in this manga to remember that are important. Shirohebe was inside the shrine, and he didn't pop up in the shrine because Ukiyo just happened to be walking by. He was in the shrine. He showed up in the shrine one day with no memories whatsoever of how he got inside that shrine. So he woke up inside the shrine. It's like someone battle royaled him and then threw him in there, threw him on an island just to fight it off or something. It's like he was kidnapped and thrown here or something, but he wasn't really kidnapped. He just popped up out of there. He probably was sleeping somewhere, but he found himself in this location one day, woke up, realized he doesn't have any memories. All he know is that he's supposed to do one thing and one thing only: kill Kurohige. And during the process of him killing Kurohige, he tried to find out, well, how am I going to do that? You're supposed to resurrect someone, and that someone that you're supposed to resurrect was this kid, Ukiyo. So, and he says his prediction, or the future that he saw, that he's supposed to resurrect Ukiyo, is absolute. So it's not like something that is just created and is made up and you could undo. It's an absolute point. And if you know anything about absolute point, it doesn't matter if you go backwards, forwards, sideways, and try to undo it like some Doctor Strange craziness. If a character is meant to die, a character is going to die. So that's what's going to happen. My vision of future are absolute. So his vision of what's going to happen to Sara is absolute. And his vision of him, his job is to kill Kurohige, is absolute. Whether he do it or not, it doesn't say that it's absolute. It just says that he's supposed to kill Kurohige. So you could say that that's absolute as well, that he's going to kill Kurohige, because it's absolute. How that happens is another story. He can't see that he's going to kill Kurohige because, one, that's another god. So you probably can't see what happens to another god without that god's consent, or he probably can't see God's futures anyway, because they probably don't have that. His powers of seeing futures probably is only related to things that aren't gods. He probably could see demigods' future and so on and so forth. But either way, all he knows is he's supposed to kill Kurohige. So he tells him this. He said, "Oh, yeah, right. You're only human outside the bonds." So this is another important. There's so many important things in this manga. This is why this is my number one. He tells him that, listen, you're no longer human, so you can't think like a human anymore. I mean, you can, but the logic of humanity doesn't apply to you anymore. It's like right now you're the only human being outside the bounds of faith. Even I don't know your future. So when he used to predict Ukiyo's future, or he could predict any human being's future, he can't do it now, because Ukiyo is technically not human anymore. He's been dead. His original human body's been dead, and the reason he's alive now is because his body has been resurrected by a god. So this body is no longer that of a human. It's a resurrected body, zombie body. So you can't see the future of someone who's not alive anymore. Even though Ukiyo is moving around in life, he's not technically have a future. I guess you could say his body and his souls aren't aligned with each other. Maybe his body is here and doing the whole supernatural thing of Sam being resurrected from hell. Another spoilers. Another one. Sam is coming from hell. Another spoilers, just to know, saying spoilers. But he doesn't have a soul, just like Sam. So very important to remember, and I just had to make sure I said that as well. If you never watched Supernatural, you would never known that season 5, at the end of season 5, this dude, well, I'll leave it there. But what I'm saying is this body could be the body of just a person without a soul inside of it. So technically there's no faith to attach to what he does in life. So there's nothing Shirohebi can predict. Whereas he can predict any other human being because their soul is still attached to their original human form. This is just putting whatever damage was original happened back in place. So he's basically a zombie boy. Yeah, and he said, okay, I'm aware for this, Maguru, blah, blah, blah. Moving forward, even more so, after saying this, after saying absolution, after telling him that, oh, absolute, exactly why I resurrected you, after telling him this, blah, 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 and then he's saying this, blah, blah, blah. He then goes into, okay, Sara just might die because of him. basically saying if he stays around Sara, he might actually be the one to reason why Sara dies. And why that is because he is since he's outside of the logic of being able to have a future or anyone to see a future. He's like a ghost that can affect a person's life moving forward. And if he is affecting the person's life, Shirohebe can't see what he's going to do, or all he could see that what he does might affect other people and just change their futures and their fate. So he decides he's not going to be around Sara if that's the case. And then out of nowhere, bizarrely out of nowhere, like absolutely out of nowhere, while he's talking, his head explodes for no reason. For no reason, his head explodes. For no reason. All you know is that Shirohige says, what you need to do more than anything is watch out for your head. Because there are going to be enemies who are probably going to try to decapitate you and destroy your head in order to keep you down and to experiment on you and so on and so forth. So it's like he already telling him certain things that are going to be happening in the future, even though he can't see his future anymore. It's like Shirohige knows certain things from past people experience that he had in contact with, who probably went through the same circumstances that Ukiyo has gone through. So I'm assuming Shirohige has actually done this before, even though he doesn't have memory of doing it before. So Ukiyo got his head blown off, and then all of a sudden he shows up in the room. He wakes up, his head came right back in place, like it never popped off or anything or exploded, because it actually exploded like the whole 9 yards, like an explosion of his head. No brains, no nothing. And then he just wakes up in the room, and his head is completely healed, brains and everything. Um, and you meet this girl. She says, "Hi, good morning. You're on the 62nd floor of the Torihiden building. Um, my name is Kujira Mitsuami. I'm just gonna call this girl Kujira at the moment. And what she is she's a mage, and her mage power. I want to describe what that is. You have to dive deeper into the story. That's relevant at the moment. So she's a mage, and she's a very powerful one. However, Ukiyo doesn't know that right now. He sees her as this cute little girl. I'm Kujira. It's like, nice to meet you. And this is her apartment. She lives in this place. It's very nice, very comfortable. And this is on the 62nd floor of a building. And she tells him, like, you're on the 62nd floor of the Toranomon Deki Corporation. So that's the full name of the organization that she's part of. She's part of a division called Toriden, but the entire name of the corporation is called Toramon Deki Corp, or Toramon Corp, or Deki Corp, however you want to call it. And then he goes, freaks out, because apparently Toramon Deki is Toranomon Deki, I'm saying it wrong. Toranomon Deki is like Apple or Pfizer combined together. And he says it's the highest market share for home appliances, but it's not just for home appliances. It's for electrical gadgets. It's for smartphones. It's for tools. It's for health and medications. It's for life supply stuff. They have their hands in everything. So apparently, Toranomon Deki is actually an organization that has secret stuff. It's not just human stuff they're related to. They have other things as well. And they're into all these things because all these things are related to stuff in one way or another, necessary and needed for keeping certain things in the other world, supernatural world, at bay. They're just regular gadgets and stuff that normal people would have, but they can be used for other means to, or how can I say it this way? They're cover-ups. They're cover-ups company and cover-ups secretive company, secret organization. Little side things that people do to cover up what they actually do in those areas. So a smartphone company location of its primary office can actually be headquarters for an investigation team into, I don't know, robotic sharks from space or something like that. But they have to be in their separate division somewhere else. So they use different companies or different corporations in order to do those things. So yeah, Toranamondeki is the name of the corporation, and it's a Toraden. Toraden is the short name to describe that they're the highest market share company. So typically, what I'll do right now, I'll just call them by their short name, the Toraden Corporation, and the people like the managers and stuff. I'm going to make that even shorter. I'm going to say Toraden Special Affairs Division. I believe it's Division 5. So Special Affairs Division 5. So I'm going to shorten it. I'm just call them Special Affairs Division 5. Yeah. It's not going to be like Supernatural Division 5 or Space Odyssey 5 or something like that. It's just something I'm calling it. So she tells him, she blows his head off. She says he's shocked about it. She says, how? Why did you do that? It says, you're a suspect into something that's very strange going on. Normally, human beings don't have their head grow back like that. So we're going to decide if we're going to dissect you or not. So she then goes very happy, and the whole street lines of presentation go out, because this is the rally to action lines that you would use to express um, your love for a company or your love for your duty towards your country and stuff. So these are straight up Banwa lines, you know, Nihon Banchi lines, or expression of exuberance to the highest state. So she did this, and the word bubbles that she would normally use that to represent her talking turns into straight edges right here, and that's to express great admiration and to state what you are stating, not from verbal point, but as an expression of a command outside at a vibrant rate. So this is Toraden Human World Security Department for Filth Extermination Special Division. That's why I said it's a long name to describe what they do. So I'm going to shorten it up. I'm just going to call it Toraden's Affair 5, or Toraden's Section 5. Or maybe I should just call it Toraden's uh, Division 5. Well, actually, I won't call it Division 5. I'm just going to call it Toraden Special Department. That's what it doesn't matter. Toraden Special Department. I'll call them the Toraden Special Department for Filth Extermination. That's easier. Toraden Filth Extermination Division. So that said, she got that done and over with. She then is told by this person that, you know, she's kind of have this fixation for guys that she just met, that she's really into. He says, cut it out. You know, so she's kind of a weirdo, and it's based on the past couple of chapters. It's believed from my recollection that she might have a multi-person disorder. So it could be more than one person inside of her. That's like she could have more than one of herself. And it breaks every now and again. One moment she snaps, and the next moment she's this very nice person. So this is the infatuation one speaking. At least that's to my knowledge that's what's going on. And she tries to go in and kiss him, and he actually lays her out. He punches her directly in the face. So that's another thing about this manga that's very surprising. Many surprising things happen out of nowhere that you would not expect. So he lays her out. She goes back. She gets back up. She looks at his hands. He lost his hands completely in order to do that, because he was actually on the floor. He didn't have his hands before. I believe he was tied up, so he couldn't move. So he just removed his hands from himself, and then he slugged her in the face with his handless hand. And she fell back. So she's kind of curious that he's able to just remove it like that. And then out of nowhere, a freakish monster come out of the blue. So slam through the window, tries to kill them both for reasons why Shirohebi, and Shirohebi attached to him, attached to Ukiyo, kind of is a thing that resonates around him. Thus, creatures that are supernatural in nature are going to pick up in it. It's like a beacon, a resonating beacon. They pick up with when it comes to things that are super powerful, and they just go towards that thing in order to acquire that thing's power. So, yeah, they bust through. This creature busts through here, and then for no reason, out of nowhere, the girl walks up to the creature, places her leg on the creature, and gets upset and says, "How dare you bust into and destroy my apartment and stuff?" So it's at this moment it's quite obvious that she's not a normal person. No normal human being would even waste time to not only not be freaked out, but actually get angry about some big ass creature that busts through your window that could destroy your walls and everything of all things. It's that strong, and you just walk up to it and put your left feet on it just so you could tell them off. So she tells them off and say, "How dare you?" Blah 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 blah. This doing her whole speech and everything. Yukuyo takes this opportunity to try to get out the way and to escape, but then he saw that the creature was going to devour her. He doesn't know that she's super strong yet. He just assumes she's still a girl that's crazy. He doesn't understand what's going on still. And there's lots of things going on. So he decides to whip out his sword arm, or his Shirohebi's weird devouring, slashing arm, whatever you want to call it, his sword arm, kills the creature, and then turns off its power again. And then she's starts saying some weird stuff like, "But I love the present me right now, even though the past me was being rude to you." And he's like, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't understand. You're not making sense." And that's when you start to realize she has multiple personality disorder, or at least that's what is assumed based on she's talking about present me and past me. And then he runs up to her and says, "How can I kill Kurohibe?" And he only says that to her because she accidentally blurted out that she knows um, about Kurohibe, and her organization knows about Kurohibe, and they want to kill it as well. So he figures that she knows a little bit more than he does about Kurohibe, because otherwise, why would she just say that name without him telling her? And so he automatically assumes that she knows how to kill the creature, and based on the fact that she's part of this organization, and he's this close to her, and she assumes that he's going to kiss her or something like that. So she puckers up for a kiss, and lo, out of nowhere, another representative of the Torodin Special Division come through the window and make sure whatever monster was below was destroyed, because apparently there was more than one monster, not the monster that Ukiyo killed, but another monster. So, or maybe he just decided, okay, I'm just gonna jump from floor 1 all the way to floor 62 to see if my if my assistant, because apparently she's part of his team, is safe. So he happens to land on the 32nd floor of the building out of nowhere. We don't know if he jumped there or he flew there or whatever, how he or teleported there. He just came through the window, and he landed and came through the window. So the landing shows by the lines itself, going this way out of his hands. So he came in there, and you start to say, why isn't this guy tied up? Which he was, with a huge axe. And out of nowhere, she slugs him. Her other personality, I'm assuming, slugs him. He fell to the ground, and he's laid out, and he says, "What the hell are you doing? I'm your boss. I'm your boss. Calm down, relax." And she's pissed off. She's beating him to a pulp. He's like, "I almost had my first kiss," or something like that. Some craziness like that. Or maybe it's not her first kiss, but she tried to kiss him, and he interrupted that kiss, so he laid him out. So he hit the ground, and later on he got back up and says, my name is," well, he doesn't say his name. He just says, "Are you crazy for letting this guy loose?" And the name pops up. His name is Yuki Hizami, or Koki Hazami. I'm saying it all wrong. It's Koki Hizami. Now, typically the Japanese one is Kouki, and this could be like an error by this person, or it could be that his name's actually Ko Ki Hizami, and he's part of the Torrid and Human World division, and he's a mid-level onimoji, and onimojis are mages, like Japanese versions of mages, and yeah, so he's a mid-level guy, um, and for some reason he says, okay, so you died in a traffic accident 10 days ago, and yet you're still here. How's that possible? And of course, Ukiyo says, enough of that. Enough of your questions. How do I kill Kurohige? So Ukiyo is a single-minded person. He doesn't care about anything these people are asking. He just wants to know how to kill Kurohige. And he says, why are you telling me what to do? You know, so he comes across as even though he's the boss, he comes across as the boss that people ignore. And that's something that you'll find in manga, more recent manga rather than past. Some ones of past as well. So I guess you could say uh, Kujira here um, says, "Hey, well, why don't we just let him be part of our organization rather than just dissect him and stuff? We just let him be part of the organization." And she just says, "Oh, because I want to be with the guy." And he says, "I don't want to be with you," so on and so forth. I say, "But are you sure we should just invite this guy in to be part of our organization?" And like, yeah, he could be helpful towards killing Kurohige, and we get to know a lot about this, how he was able to come back to life, and by the the white snake god Shirohebe. It's like, all right, that's fine, but I need to test this guy to see if he's even worth being with our organization. And in order for me to test it, you'll have to do some exorcism, and don't come crying to me if you can't cut it. So he says it right here. He says, "Don't come crying to me later if you can't handle the work that we do here in this organization." So he just replied back, "Is like, don't wet your pants if an enemy tries to kill you, and come crying to me as well for help." So they're kind of like the polar opposites. They're they're not enemies like Sasuke and Naruto, but they're not exactly on each other's side as well. So he's the boss, and he's going to be in charge of Yukio as he's in charge of Kujira. So moving forward, the next thing you see, they're actually doing work within this area, cleaning up work. And I'm going to breeze past a lot of these stuff going towards the end because I have the other two, but it's very important to tell this story for the first three chapters. And yes, this is just three chapters towards this story. So this is chapter 2, and we're going to go into chapter 3. So in chapter 2, he's doing the dusting, blah, blah, blah. They're doing this. He's saying, why the hell are we doing this type of stuff and doing this type of dusting? Shouldn't I be actually exercising stuff? He said, sure, but I have to tell you how to exercise first. He said, no, it's fine. I'll just put my hand on this and exercise it by myself. So apparently, um, you know, Koki says, okay, you can expel or exercise with just touching the thing. That's something that's extraordinary. Typically, you have to learn magic before you can even do the magic, and it's basically Shirohebe's power that allows him to do that automatically. So he just has to do like two jobs, and he should be fine. The first one, he already exercised one of those filth. Next one, all he has to do is two more. So that's what he does, and he remembers what Mr. Ami said, and he remembers that what Shirohige said, and that's it, and that's all there has to do. He just has to exercise three. But after he exercised three, and he says, "Okay, you've done what you're supposed to do, so you could now be part of this organization. But I should tell you, um, if you ever come into danger, you should run if an enemy is has more than three eyes." And he said, "Why should it matter if an enemy has more than three eyes? If I'm stronger than them, I could kill them." It's like, it matters a lot. So he basically state this: enemies that have a one eye are newborns. Enemies that have two eye are kind of a handful, but you can still deal with them. They are doable. But enemies that have about four eyes, beyond four eyes, three or more eyes, they're the ones you want to watch out for, because they could kill you on the site if you're not paying attention. In all truth, enemies that have 3 eyes can be destroyed easy as well. It's the one that have 4 eyes where he says more than 3 eyes, and those with 3 or more eyes. So technically, 3 eyes are easy as well. But enemies that have more than 3 eyes are the ones you want to watch out for. So he, like Ukiyo, doesn't really pay attention. He thinks he's super hot. Um, he agrees to shake his hand. He's like, "Okay, shake my hand. You're now part of the Torridans human filth division specialist for getting rid of human filth." And he says, "Shake my hand." It's like he looks at the hand and says, "No, I'm not going to do that. I don't shake hands of men." And so this is a nice little like aggression thing that's going on between both of them. They don't really like each other, but he's his boss. So they walk down the street and say, "Fine, just come with me. You don't have to shake my hand." So as they're walking down by this forest area, a guy walk out of nowhere, and that guy that walks out of nowhere is has been contaminated by filth or taken over by filth. So his host body, the parasite filth that took over his body, is a super strong one. It's not a regular one. It's a 4 eye one. So they soon realize they're in serious trouble because they feel the presence of this 4 eye one. And it's not like all the other filths that they were fighting before, the giant ones and the other ones, the different beast ones. The 4 eye ones are kind of special in a way. They have large amount of energy pool, which means they could do more than just charge and physical attacks. They could do devastating attacks as well. So they come across a 4 eye one and they realize they feel this presence, is aura, and then Koki says, "Hey, get the hell out of the way." You try to push, motivate Ukiyo to run for his life, and in the process he gets his hand blown off. Um, unlike unlike Ukiyo, Koki can't make his hand come back on, even though he's a high level mid magic guy. I don't think he has a magic that could make his arm come back to life or reattach where bones and everything. So most likely his arm is gone completely, unless the Toriden Corporation has medicine that could heal hands just like that over time. Um, Nothing is shown to prove that. So it's most likely his arm is gone. Yes, he could cauterize it so he doesn't bleed out, but it's not like he could put it back on like Ukiyo can. So his arm is gone, period. And then out of nowhere, the creature decided to humbly be reverent and bow to Shirohebe. He's not actually bowing to Ukiyo, he's bowing to Shirohebe. So these creatures, the filth, consider human beings to be nothing that can be devoured. And if they decide to possess them, it's simply to use them for enemies. So in this filth's mind, since he's actually servant of Shirohebe, um, he sees Shirohebe as using this person as a host. So I'm very concerned about what's going on at this point, because why would a filth be servant to Shirohebe? Why? It could be the same reason why the filth are attached and loyal in some ways to Kurohebe, the ones that are actually doing the kidnapping and summoning the filth. So it's it's basically a proven, well, not 100% proven that um, filth are things that both Shirohebe, Kurohebe, and other gods like them can control. Or at least these are species or different type of species that praise and are servants to God, but aren't actually creations from those gods. They're just summoned. So at least this is what I am thinking, that these filth aren't actually creations from these gods, that they're servants of these gods of different species types. So they might be various other species besides the filth that are out there. And you will see this later on as you go forward in the next image. So this is a cat. And this cat doesn't have multiple eyes or anything like that. It's just a cat. But it's a talking cat. very much like the talking cat in Bleach or something. Um, and it doesn't have any eyes or anything, but it's considered to be a filth. Um, but is it really? Because filth aren't shown to be things that are can transform into cats. And if they do take over a cat, then that cat would have more than just two cat eyes. It would have multiple eyes on its body, even if it has an extra eye. But this cat does not have any eyes other than those two eyes. So the cat is not really a filth. So what happens next is Kouki storms back in after he got his. I mean, I wouldn't say he stormed back in. He was always there. He said, "Screw this. Enough of this conversation. I'm pissed off now. I lost my arm." He slammed his hand towards the ground to crack the floor, and he makes this huge swinging motion with his good right arm, and as the way to blind or to distract the enemy. So this huge wave of power just came out of him, or a gust of wave of energy just came out of him towards the enemy. And the enemy obviously is blinded by the dust or something, and that gives Kouki enough time to tell Ukiyo for them to get the hell out of there. So um, I keep saying Ukiyo, yeah, yeah, it is Ukiyo. I keep thinking about something else. So they both get the hell out of there, run real fast. Ukiyo grabbed them, picked them up, picked up Kouki, took off with him, and Koki's saying, "Well, you need to learn to calm your soul." And say, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's like, the reason why they've been tracking us because you're resonating a lot of Shirohebi's energy or a lot of aura energy. You need to know how to calm yourself so that they can't track you because you're like a human beacon. So in order for that to happen, he slugged him in the stomach so he could calm himself. Because intentions, he radiates heat and radiates energy. So in order to knock that tension out, um, he direct that energy. I guess you could say Yukiyo's mind will have to direct this focus towards the pain of being punched rather than the the resonating aura of him actually running for his life. So it's a nice way of it's basically say relieving the tension of the moment. That's the only way to calm yourself and calm your aura so you become undetected. So he basically decided to do that, decided to concentrate. And so Koki said, "Wow, they're sitting right next to each other, hiding, and he can't sense his presence whatsoever at all. He can't pick up on him." And he said, "Wow, this is very strange how this guy is able to learn all these things so quickly. I mean, even though he has Shirohige inside of him, it's like he's a natural at knowing how to do these things that he doesn't really have to learn because he believes that um, even if which someone has Shirohige attached to them, they would still have to learn the basics. But this guy's like a natural. But it doesn't even matter because whether you're able to lower your energy to almost zero, so an enemy can't detect you, it doesn't matter. Um, the guy found him anyway. The filth found him, and he basically said, "I didn't sense it at all. Even if it was suppressing his soul force, this is too close. The hell is this guy?" So these aren't normal filth. These are not normal filth. For one, they talk. Two, they can suppress their energy. Three, they can uh, like how would I say parasites that would be take host human host as parasites, and then four, they could actually move faster than normal filth can. Because the normal filth they could only move as fast as whatever their body type is. Like if they were a filth that looked like a cheetah, they would move fast like a cheetah. If the filth that looked like a human, they would move fast like a human. If they were the giant size woolly mammoth or something, it would move fast like a woolly mammoth. So they could only move or do things based on their body anatomy. But these filth are kind of different. They don't that stuff don't apply to them. That and many other things. So they're curious to know what these things are. So the next thing, directly after that, after they're found by the filth, we then see Kujira on top of what is seen to be like a flying whale hovering over the forest. And this is not a normal whale. This is like a whale that's been infected by a filth or something. or it may not even be a filth. It might just be supernatural powers that the mage has in order to create this or conjure this thing out of nowhere, out of the blue. Um, so it is it is shown at this moment how truly powerful Kujira is, and in order to prove that even more, never before has a filth doubted that they were special beings. So filth, being that the species that they are, which human being call them filth, they're probably not even called filth. They've doubted. So this is the first time the author is basically telling you um, that this filth has doubted that they're the dominant species above human beings. So, yeah, that's the case. That's what's happening right then and there. So, it's basically saying to the reader, hey, um, there are filth that are out there, and they believe that they're superior to human beings. And I'm going to use this guy as an example to show that this is what they believe because they're able to devour human beings and acquire things that is beyond human, normal human. See them as cattle, humans as cattle. It's weird that they would start a doubt that they are the dominant species, that they were special in any way. Um, I guess you could say some certain filth don't, at certain levels, don't know that people like Kujira exist. So if he's doubting right now of how powerful um, human beings are that can use magic, that filth aren't special, then that means as high level as he's special as he is, he's not high level. As special as he think he is, he's probably lower level tier filth. He's stronger than the normal one eye, two eye, or three eyes, but he's still considered lower level filth. Um, if he's doubting this, which means he's not being told certain things by those much more powerful than him. So what happened is he looks up, Koki looks up, sees the flying whale, and out of nowhere, next thing you know, Kujira is right in front of Ukiyo, asking him, hey, you look kind of peakish there, look kind of pale. And then this guy in the back, the filth in the back, boom, his arm is gone, just like that in an instant. So one moment he's looking up, the next moment he flashed. He tries to look in front of him or look behind him to see Kujira right in front of Ukiyo, and next thing you know, his arm is gone. So that's pretty much how chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and this led into chapter 4, I believe, chapter 4 and 5. So it went a little bit above chapter 3 and 4. That's because I went beyond the third chapter to see if this manga could be the number one to keep me in place. Because every single one that I'm going to stay within this video are going to have 3 chapters to evaluate them on. But if you're going to be the number one above those other 3, I would have to read more than just 3 chapters. So I read an extra 2 chapters to see where this one is, if I'm going to consider this one better than the others. And I did. And it's a slightly better than the next one that I'm going to show. And the next one that I'm going to show, I'm going to get directly into it right after this one, is Alien's Era. But before that, if I did not mention it before, which I probably did mention it before, that Stage S was made by Harikawa um, Tomoya. That's Harikawa, Tomoya, Tomoya. That's the artist for this manga. And you can check him out and check out his works online. And if you're really into what's going on within this manga, you could research more. This manga is very much like a Bleach story, or like a Blue Exorcist story, or like a Black Clover story. Very much like Bleach, very much like Blue Exorcist in some ways, and other ways it's very much not like it. So from the beginning, going back from the beginning, evaluate word lines. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna cut it down to like 5 minutes to describe everything I saw, how and this is the way you could do certain mangas of certain artwork. So it's no longer about me reading about the story anymore. It's about evaluating everything I've seen within it. So I already spoke about the lines for here. I already spoke about, I didn't speak much about anything here for perspective wise, but in perspective wise, if you're going to sit someone on a chair and looking out a window, you have to have the anatomy of the body angled anyway to the proper proportions. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have the line of where the shoulder is going to be. If you have the line of where the shoulder is going to be, you're going to want to have the line of where the person is going to be sitting, where the person's bottom is going to be sitting. So you draw the line there. So now you know the base of where the person's buttocks is going to be and where the shoulder of the person is going to be. Now, if the person's shoulder is going to be really high, like here, then that means you have to stretch the anatomy of both the bottom from where the bottom section is towards where the shoulders will meet. So from anatomy wise, his shoulders and his bottom must be considered. And then you must find the midpoint. And you could draw a line to be the midpoint of where you figured the lower end of the pelvis would meet the spinal column. And then that will be your pelvis area. So you line the pelvis, and the pelvis area is going to be the connected part towards the spinal column. And the spinal column is going to bend, so the body bends with spinal column. But the pelvis is going to be set at is standard. So when the body bends forward, the spinal column will still stay the same way. And so you need to know where that pelvis ends, so you could figure out, okay, so the pelvis ends there. There I could put the upper lining of the stomach a little bit above. So the belly button will be a little bit above where the pelvis ends. Or you put the belly button exactly where the edge of the pelvis ends, or a little bit above it. Typically I put the belly button a little bit above where the pelvis line will end. And then for the spine bending forward, you could then, for that area, to make sure that area is balanced in perfect harmony to where you want to be, you could add a little ball here. Put a little circular ball here to represent how far from the pelvis and from the rib cage that little ball will be. And once you have that little ball here, you could increase that little ball size to, in the center right here, to if you want to have the rib cage higher, or if you want to have the rib cage lower. So technically, you will always want to have your rib cage a little bit longer than the length of your pelvis. Basically, from your hip going all the way down to your lower ends before getting towards your entire femur. So what you will want to do to that, you will want to make that little circle here, and then you move forward to the edges of that little circle, and the edges of that little circle will be where your first lower level of your rib cage will be, and then you draw that line there, and then you move forward from there. Now you have a certain proportions with regards to the shoulder being attached here, and then the lower edge of the rib cage being here, and then going up to the additional of the rib cage going upwards. So that's another nice little way to do things. So I like how this is set. Anatomy of him sitting down is set good. Moving forward from there, like I said, I already spoke about the proportions of distance of the eyes, but how the eyes are set, they're set good. And the size of the eyes based on where their angle is also set good. Because typically when you're doing eyes and the person is looking away or to the side and stuff, the size of the eyes from the top to the bottom will always be the same regardless. But the distance of the eyes in their width will always be smaller because the proportion is being squeezed in based on your face turning. But the height is never going to be changed from top to bottom. They're always going to be the same height. Just the distance is going to be different in spacing of the eyes. So that's good with regards to the manga. And other things that I could identify within it that are good, I'm going to breeze right through it so I could get to the next manga, is your setup of your story arc, of your various different stories that you want to set up, or your panels that you want to set up. If you're talking about the sky was blue today and I was walking through the forest, you have to find a way to put a blue sky in your background, and then put your feet walking on the ground in another panel, and then show I guess the secondary thing that you were doing. It was a blue sky, and I was walking through the forest, and I decided to log this information on my cell phone. So you then have to put your another panel to be you logging it on your cell phone, because they have to be separate. When you're saying certain things, they have to be separate. It has to show the blue sky, it has to be show you walking, and it has to show you on the cell phone. Or you can compress all three into one singular image. Show you walking, show you on your cell phone, and show you in your forest. Now, the only time that you would separate that singular thing, be present in one full panel, is if you have multiple other things that are you want to squeeze into that one full panel. That means that's the only time that you would not want to have a singular image, because technically what you can do in many cases, you can split that one singular thing into three sections, but it'll be pointless if you could just put it into just one image. So that's another thing. This is good. The facial contours of the character is that's represented here is supposed to represent youth. That's why it's a little bit more circular around the jaws. There's not more defining like curvatures, because the jaw becomes longer as you get older. So here it's just showing the youth of the character, but this is actually a little bit off, because this is kind of like the curvature that you would do for a child, not really for a teenage girl. Um, if they had made it a little bit sharper here, it would be more like a teenager rather than full circle right here. So it's just a little bit off. You know, it could be that the fact that she's turning to her side, the chunkiness, but here, I don't know. Maybe she's a little chunky. It's a little subjective, questionable. But who knows? This is good as well. This is also good. If you're going to have lines on pavement, it has to look like this. They have to be scratches. They have to look like extra scratches due to construction, or due to people moving on it, or due to weathering. Weathering, typically when it's weathering, you will have scratches like this. Or to show shadows, the shadow areas, you will have scratches like this. It's a little offbeat. Typically, I would have my shadows look like something totally different. This is more like something for weathering, but I'm not sure if they were going for weathering with regards to this, because they're showing you straight lines going downwards to show Shirohebi's shadow. So that means this is also representative of shadow as well. Um, that means this person actually draw this stuff in there rather than use a computer to create lines. So that's that. There's also this is fine. Going through all this. This is carnival. Yeah, if you're going to show morning, afternoon, evening, might want to not make it 100% bright. Might want to show the actually atmosphere of the time of day. Otherwise, the person will always assume that it's morning time. Um, there's no show for showing it afternoon, but that's fine. You could define what it is you want it to be. I guess that's probably the main reason why they had it to be white. For you to define if it's morning or afternoon, it's up to you. The person just didn't want to show that it was night, because otherwise this wouldn't be white. This is fine as well. Another reason why this is my number one is because a lot of things here are set very well and defined very well in anatomy, as well as positioning, distance of the lines on the ground, represented here in perspective of the car moving forward, and the trees lining up in perspective as well. And as well as here, how they use the truck to show the truck is going to knock them over. How they use the bowl of blackness. I guess if you were to use the truck running him over in the morning time, you would have to not focus that much on the darks and the lights versus each other. It would have to be something more of separation of objects. It would have to be very much separation of objects. It would have to be an angle where this is not presently seen, this is not seen, and it will have to be more of a close-up shot. And this vehicle will have to be pushed back a little bit more if it was morning time. But this is fine. Yeah. So many things are great about this manga. I don't have anything to say bad about it. It has some off and on things, but most of everything I've seen from an art point of view is very good. I like the expressive lines of the use. Maybe this is a little thick. You could go thinner, but who cares? You know, if this person is doing this by hand, that's 100% fine. The character Kujira is drawn very well, and it's a great representation of this type of behavior. That you doubt that this nerdy girl will be someone that awesome. So it's a perfect representation of what she isn't. Um, and the design of her character is very good as well. I like the use of the blacks here. They could have easily have put the light somewhere else in the room, but I like the way that they put the light above, showing it directly down on her. I mean, typically light are above you anyway, but they could have put the light somewhere else, or a contrasting light rather than a single light showing downwards. I like this as well. Yes, there are many things I like about stage 6, but now I'm going to move on to the next one. I like the angles of this as well. I'm going to get more into action lines in Aliens era. Aliens, I believe Aliens era does more far better with their action lines than Stage 6 does. Um, see these speed lines. I think Aliens era does a little bit better, or maybe they don't. Maybe these guys do the same thing or a little bit better. There's only one way to find out. I'm going to look at this. So speed lines going backwards, flash lines forwards. So here. Yeah, they do it better than Aliens era. So I was right in Stage 6 being a little bit better. But there are many things in Aliens era that Stage S, I almost said Stage 6 again, Stage S, um, does better. So moving on from that, Stage S is the next one. And Stage S is, I mean, not Stage S is the next one. Aliens Era is the next one. And Aliens Era, I'm going to make this one short, 30 minutes. This one is not going to be a full hour. I already stated my evaluation. This is Aliens Era. I'll make this one very short. This is done by Aliens Era is done by Naba Fusai. Now, I said it at the beginning. I'll say it again. Aliens Era is Naba Fusai, Nabafusai, and done very, very good artwork. And this is a new artist, and it's making a big stink in Japan. Rising artist, very good. So, good artwork, great positioning. I'll basically show the story and say what I have to say at the end. So basically, aliens are coming to Earth, and they're doing the whole Gans thing, hiding in plain sight. You can't see where they are, and they're kidnapping, they're killing, they're trafficking, they're implanting, they're experimenting, you name it. But someone has to keep these aliens in check, and it's called human. I think uh, it's an Earth Defense Force for Intelligence Affairs. What they do is Human Affairs 5. Yeah, this was, I was getting this confused with Stage S. Human Affairs 5. That's what these guys are called, Human Affairs 5. Um, of some organization that allows them to do this. So they're classified and locked off certain zones on Earth as aliens areas on Earth that aliens typically do business or typically do lawless things, and those areas have to be locked off because aliens don't generally go into mad public areas. They typically go to areas that they can get away with doing certain things. So that was the intro, and then you have the image of the two main characters that are going to be the whole body cop of this whole thing, like the Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. So he's the Tommy Lee Jones and he's the Will Smith. That's what that is. But who knows? He might actually be the Tommy Lee and he's the Will Smith. I don't know what it is, but it's a little bit more extreme than Men in Black, and definitely more violent than Men in Black is. It's not a Men in Black story, but it's very similar. Aliens, they have to wipe people off mind, and so on and so forth. So the story first starts with a kid called Tatsunami. He's a high schooler in his third year, so he has like one more year to graduate high school. But that's not going to go well. He's probably going to become a high school dropout because it'll show that he has certain things that he has to take care of. So he run into his friend. His friend says, "Was it about a sports scholarship?" I turned that down. What? Why? What a waste. So they were going to offer him a sports scholarship because he's a very athletic kid. He's not just a normal kid; he's an athletic kid. They were going to offer him a very good scholarship. And his friend says, "Man, it's like, why turn down things that good?" He's like, "I gotta go to work, man. I gotta feed my family." He's like, "Yeah, but you gotta pay attention to your future." So his manager at his job says the same thing. "Hey, what's up, boss?" It's like, "Hey, Tatsumi, or Tatsu, he calls him Tatsu. Um, you're are you still planning your college education?" He's like, "Nah, I forgot about that." It's like, what's wrong with kids nowadays not even thinking about college? How are they going to even make it in life if they're just working without considering a future? It's like, hey, I don't have a mother and I don't have a father. He doesn't tell him, but it's shown here that his mother and his father are both dead, and he has a little girl and a little boy siblings. So those are his brother and his sisters, and they're way too young to be able to even consider working or doing any type of work to take care of themselves. And they're way too young to learn how to even do chores in the house without breaking something. So they're at that very, very youthful age that they're completely useless and can't do anything other than just eat, sleep, and use the potty. So he has to do all of that. So he has to figure out how to get multiple jobs in order to pay for rent and pay for their survival and for them to keep going to school and to stay out of trouble, so on and so forth. So he has, I believe, he has like two jobs right now, and he's figuring out trying to get a third. So that's his issue. And so he paid for a bag that cost 30,000 yen, and he says he needs another job, so he goes to he has to figure out how to take care of these kids. He says university's out the way. I can't spend time in studying hours or being in school. Every hour I spend doing anything has to go towards work. Um, because money is needed in order to take care of these kids. Money is needed for this child singly, money is needed for this child, and money is needed for himself. So he needs at least two jobs in order to maintain all three of them. One is for balancing food and everything towards them. The other is the balancing the clothing and other things as well. Um, so minimum of two jobs, but I believe he might need three based on the circumstance that he's dealing with. Because when they're young, they eat a lot. It's not like they're teenagers, and he's the oldest of the teenagers. So he's working his ass off here in the store, washing dishes. Gets his hands burned. He drops something on the ground, and it burns his hands, red hot, burn his hands. Healed up automatically. His fellow coworker says, "Are you crazy or something? You shouldn't be touching something that hot. Let me see your hands." She looked at his hands. His hand is completely healed. He's like, "Wow, that's freaky. Nobody hands just healed like that. That's bizarre." And so the character Tatsumi starts to narrate to the audience and telling the audience, "Well, this has been something that's been happening since I was a young kid. This is not something that recently just happened. It's something that's been happening since I was a young kid. I don't know why it happens. It just happens." So he goes to the doctor. The doctor says, "Hey man, your test runs is fine. It's like it shows that you're fine. And yes, it's kind of bizarre that your hand just healed that fast. Maybe you were under adrenaline or something." But he says, "Well, this has been happening my entire life. It's not something that just a spontaneous moment." It says your psychological files as I says you're working too hard. Maybe you're working too hard. Maybe you're seeing things. Basically saying because you're fine, you might think that something's happening more than what it is. So he left the office, and then boom, out of nowhere, he runs into this guy. And this guy is very weird and very strange. From the moment I saw this picture, I know that this was going to be one of those mangas that was going to be a trippy. that he'll end up, this kid here will end up being the main antagonist of the story, or he's going to be the biggest badass of the story before, Aliens Era becomes like an anime or a movie, or it gets to that level that the person who created this artist, Naba, becomes that famous. So I'm assuming, based on this, that this guy is either going to be the shit, or he's going to turn out to be a bad guy in the end. For right now, if it's going to Men in Black route, that's not going to happen. But if it's not going to go to Men in Black route, it might be a fallout between him and Tatsumi one day, and things might not go their way. But I don't think it's going to be going that way. I just think that this kid is a weirdo, and he's either one or two things: a very strange kid, or he's partially an alien, and he's not telling anyone. So he says, "Doctor giving up on a patient. That's not a good sign." He shows up, says Tatsumi, says, "Who the hell are you?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm this guy Hajime Shiraku." That's what he says his name is. And I'm a police officer, a detective of my division, and I'm here to check out your little situation on how you got burned and how it healed completely. But not only that, because these things have been happening to you for quite some time. So it's not like I just showed up because you burned hand. It's just like you've been someone that we've been very interested in for quite some time, but we haven't really approached it because we thought it's not something that considered recent. So I guess you could say Hajime looked into his past before coming here. So Tatsui left. He said, "I don't have time for this." His questionings, but he started to think about it. He started to think about, based on what Hajime says, it's not normal that those things happening. Why would the detective be interested in that all of a sudden? It's just a freakish thing that happened to me. I'm not normal when it comes to healing, but then the police are actually interested in this phenomenon that he has. So it might actually be something that's important to look up and to find out why the police would be interested in this to begin with. And so he just basically stated one day, an explosion happened in his building and it collapsed, and then his parents died and he was the only one alive. Apparently, the children weren't at home at the time. They were probably at daycare, but he was at home. And actually, yeah, he was at home, and they died. So there's something. Okay, so this is something I've just realized. I didn't notice this before. But if this happened when he was younger, and parents got killed during this whole explosion here, that might have meant that his younger siblings, the kids that are way too young, were probably just born, and still inside of the hospital, um, which means she wasn't in the hospital with them, or they were just born and they were left to be taken care of by someone else during the time, when he was in his home, when his parents died. But he wasn't like super young, like he was a kid as well. He was a kid, but he was not that much of a kid. I think he might have just been 13 or something like that. Otherwise, because if he was really young, like 7 or something, then the reason why Taro and Sachi, those are names of his siblings, they wouldn't be that young. They would be young, but they wouldn't be that young. So that means that they might have just have been born when he was in his late, when he was 12 or 13 or something like that. Yeah, so that's something I just figured out. And then there's this guy. He's standing at their door. He goes, Tatsumi goes back home, and then this weirdo standing by their door. And this is not a normal guy. These are both aliens. They came in to find out why Tatsumi went to the police officer, but their main purpose is to extract the implant that was put inside Tatsumi. So Tatsumi now finds out that the reason why he's being able to heal so quickly and so fast is because he has an implant inside of him, and that implant allows him to heal up fast. For what reason and why is unknown, but the alien says your body is like a receptacle, you know, or like a beacon. Like because of many forms of energy exist um, in reality, some of those things can travel in three-dimensional space. Like many forms of energy can travel in three-dimensional space and in similar types of waves as well, like frequency waves. That's all what it's about. That's what's happening to his body. So that's how they were able to pick up on his location. It's because they were able to pick up on the frequency energy, his frequency specifically of his messed up arm. Even an alien should be able to understand that, but he's not an alien, so he cannot understand this. So they're interested in the transmission that the frequency wave of the implant. So it's basically telling them they're telling him that his arm is pulsating a certain type of frequency, energy frequency, that these guys can pick up on, that maybe other aliens cannot, and maybe other human beings cannot, but they can. So it's something from outer space. It's outer space energy. It's a type of energy that were created by a species and planted inside of him. So it's not normal energy. It's a created energy. And he said, "What? From outer space?" And out of nowhere, the kids come in and say, "Hi, how you doing, big brother? Who are these guys?" Well, they didn't ask who they are. They just looked up. And then he said, "Well, they see my face now. They both have to die." So he charges at the guy who grabs his siblings and was about to kill them. He punches him in the stomach. He punches him so hard in the stomach, he went flying. But he did it in a way that his arm ripped out of his from where it is and extended like some Stretch Armstrong thing, or like some Venom from Carnage, or from Carnage himself. So his arm went Carnage, and he knocked the guy back. And then the kid they both fell to the ground. The girl went unconscious. Sachi and Taro hit the ground. He should have been unconscious too, but he gets back up, run to his big brother, and instead of running away, like Tatsumi tells him to run away, what a typical kid would do, they would run towards someone who's for protection, to be saved by that person, because they're too young to understand what running away is. They will typically, like a young deer or something, run towards protection of his mother. So that's what he did. So in some ways, that's very brutal, and it's not something I like when it comes to manga, that some certain artists do. They use animals, they use children, they use certain type of sexual themes to describe a certain event or a certain action in order to hook the audience, and they think that you're stupid enough that you don't understand what they're doing. So in that sense, I don't like that they use that in order to sell this. They don't like that they use this, sell the kid's innocence in order to hook you as a reader. I never like that. But it's something that you could easily let slide by, as long as the person doesn't abuse that in order to sell their stuff. So you could let that get away once or twice, but if they do it like more than two times within their story, then say, okay, now you're being an asshole. In fact, even if they do it more than one time, if you do it more than one time in a story, then you're kind of a prickly type of artist. And you're obviously trying to sell something to the audience in order to get them to side with you. So Hajime showed up, take care of him, got him out the way, and used this little ring, a rubber band, or actually no, it is rubber. He used a rubber band, and then he extends the rubber band to go around this character, go around this alien, and aliens collected by division heads or various different inspectors or workers within his his human affairs division, and they captured the target, and the target is taken away, unlike his alien friend who got killed. So he's captured, but the other one is straight out dead, killed by Tatsumi. So he basically, what Hajime tells him is like, listen, I'm going to give you the opportunity to join us so you can learn more about what the hell that thing is on your hand, or I'm going to do what we do to everyone else. We erase their minds, so you'll be forgotten. But that doesn't mean if I erase your mind, once I erase your mind, you're going to not be targeted by the enemy again. Because as long as you have that implant in your hand or in your body that's coming out of your hand, you are always going to be targeted. So it doesn't really matter. So he says that. He's like, fine, I want to join your organization. I need to protect Taro. I need to protect Sachi. And I need to figure out why did an alien put this inside of me? What's the reason why, and why this is happening? He say, well, that's what our division is going to help you find out. I say, so he says, okay, I agree. So what he does here is he allowed Taro to look in the direction of these guys who are going to do their whole Men in Black thing, and he looked in the direction of the apple flash, and the camera, I guess, flashes as well, and the tenants or whoever were there, the neighbors, they got blinded from whatever they saw, so they're not going to remember anything. So they're going to collapse on the ground, and they're going to go to sleep. And I'm assuming these guys working for the affairs, the human affairs, um, for protection against aliens, are going to move their body somewhere so that they're not within this location, so that they didn't have to arrive at this location. They'll forget. They'll get back up and do whatever they have to do. And same applies to Taro. Taro's going to forget anything that happened in this room whatsoever at all. But you notice something that's not present. Sachi. Sachi is not conscious as it's showing right now. Sachi is not conscious, and there's no showing of Sachi being conscious to actually look at the light blinding and to actually take that like little light blinding thing going towards their eyes. So there's nothing to show Sachi looked at this whatsoever. So it could be that Sachi never looked at it. But in other panels of the pages, it shows that Sachi is pretending that she's 100% fine. So it could be that the actual division made Sachi looked at it, or it's not shown here that Sachi is actually looking at it to go blind. So moving forward, the next thing that pops up we see is him agreeing to join Foreign Affairs 5. That's it. He said, yes, I don't really have that much of a choice. If they're going to attack me, they're going to attack me. His fellow employees of the organization said, do you really want to have this guy join Section 5 or Foreign Affairs 5? He says, yes, we're going to let him join Foreign Affairs 5. Because one, we want to figure out what's going on with the implant anyway, because we're fascinated by that anyway. So it's best to figure out that, as well as get him on our side, and he'll be a good force to fight off whatever's going on that we'll need to tackle down the road anyway, because we need more hands on deck. So next thing you see is both of them passed out from being flashed in the eyes, and they're going to wake up. He's going to take both of them to the hospital first, and Shiraku says that's fine. They're going to go to the hospital anyway. After you finish from dropping them off from the hospital, come to my location. And he goes to their location, and Shiraku's investigating this house that's going on here. An alien happened to have abducted the family and kidnapping kids for trafficking for outer space. Shiraku turned on his zero gravity powers, ends up defeating the enemy after he found him that he was co-culprit hand in a cookie jar abducting people. He defeated him, knocks him out to the ground. He fell to the ground. The family were able to reunite, either the grandfather and the mother, or the mother and the father, and their baby right here. They're both conscious, and this alien has been captured. So that's that. And then moving forward, Shiraku said, you seem to be happy that people were being helped, and that's good. That means that your morality of what's right and what's wrong has not been shaken by many bizarre things that you've seen. So the next, moving on to chapter 3, you now come to the condo. The condo is now shown, and inside of the condo room, shown both Sachi and Taro having their little fun time, not knowing anything that's going on. The condo is fully paid for by the Affairs 5. They both eat their food. He's surprised that their minds have completely forgotten everything, and that the technology is amazing, how they could completely forget. He then decides to go into a room, start studying about anything and everything relating towards aliens and what Human Affairs 5 does. Moving on from that, he then goes into reading up even more about the regulations and the basic standards of the organization. And then he meets Shiraku that day, and Shiraku takes him into the elevator. And Shiraku basically say, in this building, we're not on a typical floor. We're not on the standard floors that are present on the wall of the elevator. We're in between the floors of various different floors that's on the elevator. Typically, we're only on one floor. We're only on one floor, and that's the floor between B12 and B13. So that's where the division office is located, between B12 and B13. So moving through that office, that public division safety office or foreign affairs division, public security bureau office, they walk through, they see different aliens here. They see people looking at the various different alien types, researching documents, having aliens inside pods to understand how they operate, how they work. And then moving on from that, you see like this little container, aqua container, and inside of this little aqua container is where you would normally see something like a giant shark or a fish or a whale or something like that. You see this giant sea creature right here swimming around with other alien type species fishes. These aren't normal fishes whatsoever at all. They're all alien in nature. So here, this is his team, and these teams are consisted of four, I guess you could say, these are his standard subordinates that follow him. And then he's leading them. Of course, he's also someone that follows others. So he has a section chief as well. But these three are the ones that are actually part of his team. I'm not 100% sure if they 100% follow him or if that he's just part of their group. But it basically says that he's higher up than they are. So they're all inspectors, but I believe he's the head inspector above them. So this is his new buddy. He shows these different characters. You get to know each and every one of them. Miwa is a type of guy that really wants to know a lot about a character. That's his thing. He's very obvious, and he's using the typical trope of pushing his fingers against the glasses up to his eyes. Back in the days, that would show that the character is trying to play off like they're smart, but they're actually dumb. But in Miwa's case, since he's working part of this intelligence division, he actually is smart. So that whole pushing your glasses up to show that you don't want people to think that you're dumb by showing that you're smart, or that because you're wearing glasses, it shows off that you're smart, but you're actually dumb. It doesn't work for Miwa. He's actually a smart guy. So this is his real name. Moving forward, we get into Genji's situation, Inase, Genji. And I gotta say, with regards to this character, he's more on the sense of, if we were to time travel into the future and see where Foreign Affairs 5 would be present, Genji will be a representation of the person that would lead Foreign Affairs 5. So if you were to look at, let's say Aliens Era was a prelude to an actual story that's the real story. Let's say Aliens Era wasn't the actual story. It was a prelude to the future stories, the main future stories. This will be what Genji will be, a younger representation right here. So I see him in that sense, that this guy will eventually become a section chief or the leader of Section 5 one day. Even though he's kind of mischievous right now, I believe he might be the guy that will eventually settle down and start to lead people. I don't know. He just comes off as this very edgy guy who's very don't want to follow the rules, and it might actually be the opposite. He might actually turn out to be the person that follows rules in the long run. So moving on from that, we get to the next character. Her name is Fujiko Yumiko, and she's the first person that wanted to test out his skills. He said not everyone can just join this division and do whatever they want. You have to understand how things operate here. You have to understand how things are. This is not a cushy job. You can't just join it. You have to do what you're told, but you have to understand anything that you do in real life, it won't matter as much as what we do here. What we do is the safety of the entire planet, not just the safety of a group of people from, say, crime or something. It's something that's major. It's not something you could just do simply to do because you need to, protect your family and stuff. So she tests out his capabilities to see if he's even worth the ability to be considered. So she attacks him, she turns on her powers, and that's something I have to state here. Powers used by these people is not the same as powers used by Tatsumi. You know, they don't have implants, or at least it's suggested that they don't have implants. What they're using is technology, high-tech aliens tech, in order to do certain special abilities and execute certain special moves. So she's doing something that's called Equipment 1, Authentication Complete, allowing her to activate her abilities, or authorizing her to activate her abilities. What those abilities are, we don't know yet. It's just authentication for her to use it. First check Equipment 1. So now she's using her abilities, and one of her abilities is based on speed. And so these are called speed lines. I mean, these are I already spoke about speed lines, but this is the scene I was saying that maybe the speed lines in Aliens Era is better than speed lines in Stage S. But now that I look at it, Stage S speed lines are better, or at least flash lines, and then the speed lines would be the one in the background. So, speed lines could be two types. And you could describe it as speed lines in the background, or you could describe it as speed lines on a character, or flash lines if you don't like to use speed lines for characters. So that's one thing you need to consider when you're talking about Aliens Era. Now, one thing I do like about Aliens Era better than Stage S is that the angle of perspective that characters are placed. In Aliens Era, characters are placed at better type of angles to show off a type of theme or a type of behavior that's going on within the action scenes, better than that of Stage S. So where stuff like action lines might be better in Stage S, but the execution or placement of characters in action moments are better in Aliens Era than they are in Stage S. So that's one thing I like with regards to Aliens Era than Stage S. Now, another thing I want to speak on with regards to that, I'm going to move fast forward a little. You see this scene here is his ability. His ability is his stretch arm thing is not limited to just his one arm. His arm can become multiple arms. So it's not like it's something that's just singular one. It's something that become 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, however many he wants, based on his feelings and based on the energy he's letting off. So if he's able to subdue an enemy due to multiple punches, he could make his one arm become 27 arms, and he can let them all punch at the same time from not even being close to the enemy. So if an enemy was to dodge through all of his different attacks, those hands or those different movement of those hands could go left, right, up, down, and they could all go in different directions based on where he's seeing they should go. So if unlike the character that he's fighting that's in front of me, in front of them, they would not be able to see behind them unless they look behind their back. But as long as they're standing in front of him, or he could see them from a 180, he could see exactly where they're looking, where they're moving, and be able to attack them before they even get there from the back, or front, or side, or above, because he have multiple different ways to attack them. It's like each one of his hands represent an individual person. So it's like he have control of various different individual people without those being people, without even being near to them. Like he could be far here, and people 1 is over here, people 2 is here, people 3 is here, 4, 5. It's like that. So that's the advantage of having his powers. Each of them are like individuals rather than just being a singular thing. I believe they operate separate from each other, even though they're under the same command of the same person. So he's able to shut it off by calming his heart and his mind together. So that's the way for him to shut it off. So that's important to understand when reading the manga. If he's in a heated situation and his heart and his mind aren't calm, he won't be able to shut it off. And moving forward, tells a lot of people in the organization aren't interested in him being here. They think of him as an abomination. But Shiraku says, I'm going to shut them up by taking a high protection case. Well, it's not really a protection case, but he's going to take a high case. And by doing a high case and showing his accomplishments, he's able to keep Tatsumi with him as his partner. So they both go on this little walking spree. He starts talking more about this major incident that happened, and this is a higher ups level job that he's going to take. So he decided to take it, and in order to show that his accomplishments, um, that he's able to do high level things, that he's able to, that Tatsumi will be a valuable asset towards the organization. So he's met by his boss, and his boss name is Shuji Sata, Foreign Affairs 5 Site Supervisor Chief. And Shuji Sata basically is Hajime's boss. And next to that is Mino. And Mino's is the head researcher. So basically, both of these people are kind of like Hajime's boss. They're both supervisors, and they're in charge of the various different inspectors. So he's the chief that's in charge of inspectors, and she's the supervisor that's in charge of inspectors as well. But she's a research supervisor, and he's the main chief that's in charge. So yeah, that's something to know. So he's going to prove his abilities by catching this alien. Because apparently this is not a typical case, even though this is like a low-level alien. Um, so he goes back to the warehouse where the alien escaped to, and he he asked Tatsumi a question. He's like, "Why would an alien go back to its original site location? Because this is where the alien was originally sighted." So he says, "Yeah, that is weird. It must be something within this location for the reason why it would want to go back to its original site location. Even though the Foreign Affairs 5 know where he originally came from, why would he want to go back there?" And then it's revealed that the reason he went back there is because he was protecting something. There is something to protect. And there's this little alien that's here, and this alien was hiding inside of this box, and it was transmitting a message. And this is a translation data, alien language translation data. And basically, there was an assassination plot. Um, and in order to protect the alien, it is stated that they need the human world's protection. So this is an individual related to government officials from the planet Barubapa, and it says it's an official request for protection in accordance to outer space law. So this is a protection detail request by a higher ups organization. Uh, Typically, it's like witness protection, but for someone that's in danger from very dangerous individuals, but it's not like very dangerous individuals human, it's very dangerous individuals alien. So this is like a big deal for something like someone like Shiraku, because he's handling big cases. A typical case would just be capture or murder or something like that, but witness protection from a very lethal organization is something that's very, very important to Foreign Affairs 5. So that was the last page that I read up with regards to Aliens Era. And just like Stage S, I had to make sure it was better than Stage S. So I had to go past 3. However, it does. However, I would say it's not better than Stage S, simply because there weren't many things to hook me with regards to the drama of the story than there was in Stage S, and there was enough mystery in the story to hook me than there was in Stage S. And of course, there was the cliche of using the kid or to sympathize towards your reader. That wasn't something that I liked. But then Stage S did the same thing with regards to showing nudity of someone being devoured. So it's a give and take thing. However, there are more better animation sets and more better design with regards to how that Stage S was made in comparison to Alien's Area. Um, that's the only reason why Stage S is above it, is simply because there were one or two things that were better. And those things is the drawn animation, and the other is with regards to perspective, not of distance of perspective, but more of the angle of the body position towards perspective. Or If that's not the case, then it's the story. Um, it's the story itself. So 2 points, just 2 points below stage S. So stage S right now for me is at a 4.5, and Aliens Air is at a 4.3. But I'll tally up the scores towards the end after I state the last of these, which is the Manhua, and that Manhua is a hero's guide. Uh, no, the comic The Comic Artist Survival Guide. That is the name of the very last one that I'm doing here. I'm going a little bit above, but I don't want to go beyond 2 hours and 30 minutes. So, but I had to make sure I stated specifically what is going on in this manga, as well as what was going on in um, in stage S. So what you're seeing right now is the image of um, a comic artist survival guide. And what is the comic artist survival guide? It's basically a very strange way of a take of a comic artist expressing himself inside of his own personal stories that he's creating. Basically, I got sucked inside of my own comic book, and I have to write the story from the perspective of being inside of the comic book, rather than I'm outside and I have to view it from an outside point of view. So that's what is going on. So this character is called Uncle Ben, but I'll get to that shortly. I just wanted to make sure I get um, Aliens Era out the way real quick before I get into Mr. Uncle Ben here, and I hear a comic artist survivor guide. So the main thing takeaway with regards to that, when it comes to art, I already said it, so I'm not going to look into it. I said what those two things are, just those two things. So basically, it's the same thing that happened in stage S that was stated, with exception to two things and just two things, and I said what those two things are. So now jumping into Comic Artist Survival Guide. This is the Comic Artist Survival Guide, and I'm going to only take 20 minutes in order to describe it. Then I'll round out the entire thing at the end. So this is the first page of the Comic Artist Survival Guide, and this is made by the artist who has no name. Whether they decide to keep their name secret when they created this manhwa, or who knows. But there's no artist name for this. At least they haven't stated that whoever they are, they haven't stated their name yet. So I read this from beginning to end of the past four chapters. I went above 3. Everything was supposed to be standard 3 for all 3 different reads, but I had to go more deeper to see if it even worth it past the 3rd chapters. So in this one, I stopped at the 4th chapter. So this is the first page of the first chapter, and this is the main character that you're going to be seeing moving towards the end. And this is the secondary character and the 3rd character. This character over here is called Ash, and this character over here is called Thea. These are the characters within the comic book that he created. Ash is a comic book character. Thea is a comic book character. This guy, on the other hand, in the center, is not a comic book character. This guy in the center is the artist himself that got sucked into the world and that got put inside of this little armor suit. So, and he doesn't even look like this in real life. He looks dumpier and skinnier. So this is the first page of him actually, of this, the Comic Artist Survival Guide. So in some weird ways, he actually drew this himself to show himself in his own comic book. As you can see in the back, he's doing this on Photoshop. So, yeah. This is the first page of his comic book. And his comic book is called A Hero's Battle of the Demon. A hero battles the Demon King. Finale or final, depending on, I guess, if it was a television show, it would be a finale. But I guess it's in the comic book, the final part, the final couple of pages. It doesn't say what is final of. It just says final, the final section, I guess, of his last few pages or his final comic book. But it doesn't say what final of. It just says a hero battles the Demon King final. The Invincible Hero, and tag and then Invincible Hero. So I mean, not hashtag, just dash, then invincible hero. So that's the first one, and then move into the next one is the next image of the Demon King's castle, and then move into the image of the next one shows after the Demon King's castle. It shows the face of the various different monsters that serve under a Demon King. So there's this dragon monster, and then there was this huge bat monster, and then there's another monster and another monster, and they are surrounding and various different sub enemies such as beastmen in the back, and they're surrounding the heroes. And the heroes that are wearing these armor come from the Wing Kingdom. Um, and yeah, that's all I gotta say with regards to that. They're Wing Kingdom knights, basically Wing Kingdom knights, and they're all fighting both the dragons and both the heroes and the submens or metahumans or whatever they are fighting on a continent called the Panthe continent, Pante, and they're fighting at the Demon King's palace. And so they're trying to breach down the Demon King's palace to get towards the Demon King and to destroy him. And what happened is Thea, it flashes over to Thea. And this is Thea. She is passed out on the floor, and she wakes up and she looks up and she sees that the Demon King is still standing and that the hero is standing in front of him about to fight him. And the Demon King is resounding his powers and everything, so on and so forth. And I guess you could say the design of the Demon King is kind of stupid looking, because it really is a dumb looking Demon King. But you have to understand from the point of view that this is not the real what the real Demon King would look like. This is this guy, the comic artist, ideas of what the Demon King looked in his comic book. So this is not the comic book itself that we, the viewers, are reviewing and see him, the villain of the story. This is just how the comic artist created this Demon King to look, as well as how he created this hero to look. So moving forward from that, you then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, gets to some sketch lines. And these sketch lines are typically long sketch lines, long, broad sketch lines, showing with some light blue to show electricity and so on and so forth. And they're on a monitor. And the name of the character who is the actual artist for this Manhua is Xue Yingxue. So that's his name. I'm going to call him Xue from now on. Or I guess I would call him Yingyu. So I'll call him Yingyu from now on, or Ying, or Zhu. But I guess I'll just call him Yingzhu, or that's what I'll call him. So I'll just call him Yingzhu. So Yingzhu is here, and he's looking down at his work of doing the hero and Ash's face, and not finishing up on that because he's realizing he lost his job. So he's snorting and everything, and everything. He realized he lost his job. His boss telling me he didn't do a good job, and he kind of failed at his job, and he has to pack up and call it a day, finish up on his last pages, and then get the hell out. So he's doing that. He's finishing up on his last pages inside of the office late at night, and he's gonna put it in his boss's office, I guess, or in front of the basket or whatever it is. And then he was going to head off to home and find another job or something. And so it's late at night and there, and it's raining, and then all of a sudden the rain turns in the sky, the thunderstorm becomes something really ridiculous and really crazy. And then it's purple and it's blue. So it's not a normal thunderstorm. So nothing normal is going on. So it's very bizarre. So from the very beginning, everything was normal. The guy was drawing his comic normal. He's in the office. He got fired normal. The bizarrety starts once the thunderstorm start to hit. So because typically thunderstorms aren't purple in color, they're not blue in color. They don't have much colors. Their colors are typically one type of color, white in color, with exception to some blue hints. That depends on the atmosphere. But thunderstorms are never purple. They're never purple in color. So this is a bizarre thing that's happening this day, and the lights go out. It's a blackout, and there's no reason why blackout happened. You say, okay, it's the thunderstorm. The thunderstorm caused the blackout on this rainy day. But for some reason, his monitor did not black out. His monitor did not black out. He touched the monitor, he got sucked into the monitor, the lights flash, and all of a sudden he's being transported into this world of his manga. And once he's in the world of his manga, he's falling from the sky, and he sees everything that he's ever created in the manga present right in front of him. This flying ship, this big city with this long bridge over here, all these mountains, all these spikes, and this background. So everything he's ever created, he's now seeing with his own two eyes in this manga. He doesn't know what's going on, but he tells the reader that this is the Panthe continent of his Manhua that he created. And he falls down, he's still falling down, and he ends up crashing into the top of the Demon King's castle. So of all places to land, he was directed or accidentally fall into the top of the Demon King's castle, which has multiple barriers up. These things, electric grids right here, are creating a transparent barrier around his castle so no one outside can penetrate the inside of his barrier. So he crashes through the top of the roof, crashed through the barrier that's covering the roof and right into the ceiling, and crashed down onto the ground, and lands in the main hall of the Demon Kings. And then he's managed to get inside of this body. So the little dumpy looking guy that was the artist is now inside of this armored suit, and inside of this, and much taller now, inside of this body of this character, this avatar now. Or his soul has been created to fuse to look like this avatar. So while he's sitting there, a character walks up to him, and that character is Ash. Ash says, "What the hell are you doing here? How do you get past the barrier? It's impossible. No one can get past the Demon King's barrier." And then, of course, Taya gets up and then tells him, like, "Hey, I know you're having a conversation with Ash, but you got to get the hell out of here. There's a Demon King standing right in front of you. You're a mere soldier. You're going to die." So the Demon King actually attacks Yingyu, and is unable to kill him because, one, Mr. Ash, being the hero that he is, decided to jump in front of him to save his life, not knowing that probably he wasn't, like, Yingyu wasn't going to die at all. But of course, Ash doesn't know that. He doesn't know that Yingyu is actually creator. So he gets stabbed, and he actually dies. The hero of his actually comic book dies at the very beginning of the story, once he's inside there. I'm not 100% sure if Yingyu, if he had gotten sucked into, if he didn't get sucked inside of his comic, would he have allowed his main hero, Ash, to have died? Or are these events playing out because they're not in control of him? Or are these events that are playing out that he psychologically wants to happen, but he was not able to physically do it while in real life, but he always wanted them to happen? That's one of the reasons why I'm interested in this manhwa. Another thing I'm interested in this manhwa is his perspective, how things are angled. But moving on in the story, I'll get into that later. He's now seen from the point of view from Ash. He's looking at Ash. Ash is looking at him and sees who his creator is. He sees his real face, the real face of his creator, as he's dying. So the face that he saw before was an illusion, but as he was dying, he is able to see the face of the real person that he's supposed to protect or supposed to save, the real character. Very bizarre. I don't know what that means, but moving forward, protect the world in my set. That's what he says. And moving forward from that, it's stated that he's in the location of where the Wind Kingdom invaded the Demon King's castle, and that the Demon King wants to rule the world, and that the Wind Kingdom is never going to give up. And then Thea says, "Yeah, I'm not letting you get away with jack shit. I'm going to do it Steve Rogers style. I'm going to be the last man standing, even if everybody dies." That's the same way Steve Rogers stood up to Thanos when he was getting beat down. So that doesn't work for her. She eventually gets beat down just like Steve Rogers did. She gets knocked to the ground. She's passed out. And of course, leaving Yingyu with assessing the Demon King's past, what his desires are, why he's attacking him.
then starts to assess his hobbies and all this other stuff. Start to come up with all these fashions of how he could beat the Demon King, because he doesn't understand what's going on. That he's actually feeling pain, like he's actually being hurt, like he's actually taking damage while in this fight with the Demon King, and then the Demon King cuts off his leg, and then his leg is gone, and he's about to die. The Demon King is about to kill him. He said, "This is BS." When did it ever come to the fact that a fictitious character can actually hurt me, and actually remove my leg? He actually feels like his leg is gone. Um, like I was a nobody in the real world. Start reflecting on his past, sitting in front of a monitor doing artwork, and I'm not going to be a nobody in this fictitious world. And is this my faith? Is this how I die? So that's another thing why I like this manga. It's basically expressing how every artist feels with regards to them being an artist and not being recognized for their work, even though they're working their ass off every day to do that specific thing. Like, why should a guy who does nothing but wash dishes be applauded and patted on the back for washing dishes more than a guy who creates artwork simply because he's washing dishes and he's part of the whole grindhouse thing for, you're supporting a business organization so it could feed more people. We need someone to help to do something that's more beneficial towards society, towards their survival. But a guy washing dishes in the store doesn't beneficial towards people who are eating in the store. It has nothing to do with anyone's survival. So why pat that guy on the back? Or the same as a guy that does that's in charge of a laundromat, or the same for a guy that's in charge of cleaning the streets. These are all necessary jobs, but is it really going to affect the survivability of other people? No. The same for I guess you could say the same for a guy that drives a bus, or the guy that I don't know, the guy that hooks up your cable. Like, are these going to actually affect the lives of other people if you're not able to do this anymore? Sure, you could say that person doesn't have cable anymore, so they'll be able to do something, but food, shelter, clothing, and the natural things of human survival, those things don't apply to it, so it won't affect them in any way. And the same applies to art. That stuff won't affect human being in any shape and every form. So it's estimated and it's guessed that okay, so if my life is worthless, then there are many people's life that are worthless in their fields. If those things aren't considered necessary by society to be worth it, but that's not the case. We have come to a certain point in society where whatever you're trying to do in life, whether it's online content or whatever, if you're putting a lot of heart and soul into that thing and working your ass off day, hours and hours, and investing time and over and over again, those things are actually equally as more powerful as other things, because it's not like you're sitting on your ass just enjoying something and actually doing work. Same as I'm doing content for this manga. That's a lot of hours. It's more than 2 hours I've been talking about these three things. So that's something I like with regards to this manga, and that's one of the reasons why I consider this to be in the top three reads as well. It's a kind of a respecting for art and art form. And then all of a sudden, he yells out and says, "I don't want to die." And then the Demon King starts to disappear. He becomes Thanos. Then he asks the question, "What do you mean that you are the one that created us?" It's like, because he yelled out, "I created you guys. Why am I going to die?" And so the moment he screamed out, the world starts to come to an end. At least the manga world manual world that he created. So Thea starts to disappear too. Ash's dead body on the floor starts to disappear too. The Demon King starts to disappear too. And the buildings start to disappear too. Everything starts to go Thanos. Like everything goes never ending story part one or movie one. The nothing starts to eat away at everything. Or was that never ending story part two? Yeah, that was never ending story two. And nothing started to eat away at everything, and there was nothing. Yeah, so basically he tells, you know, he tells um, Ying Yu, listen, man, you just said a forbidden word. That's taboo here. You can't say that. He says this is all visitors are forbidden from using this world. So I never describe what this thing is that pops up every now and again and says this is forbidden. You cannot say this. This is not typical AI, like you see in many of like Hacked Sin and so on when you're logged into a world, or log horizon or something like that. This is supposed to be a representation of a spirit entity that's using AI, I guess you could say AI voice activation technology to state that he's been thrown into this world of his own making, and he has to follow certain rules with regards to this. And this character of this voice for this command thing is called Luna. And I never said that before in previous pages or the previous image shots, but I'm saying that right now. So this thing is called Luna, and it's a kind of a program analog thing that says various different words and describe various different things within this manual of why certain things are happening. So he said a forbidden word that's a high level forbidden word security breach type high level word, and that's the reason why everything is collapsing. So he wants to undo it, and he wants to get the hell out. So he decides, okay, so Control Q is the quit option to get out of the program that he used for creating this story on his monitor. So he tries to press Control Q. Control Q doesn't work. He said, well, why the hell can't I get out? If I quit out of my story, I should be able to get out. And so Luna tells him, oh, you can't get out because your body in the real world is dead. See, your body here has died. It is literally dead. It's on the floor dead. You touch the monitor, you got electrocuted by the monitor, you got electroconcussion, you fell to the ground, and you're basically your body is presumed to be dead. Now, if his body's 100% dead, that's a different story. But it's known for people that get shocked that they're going to be in a coma for a while before they wake up. So basically, he's stranded in this fictional world. And if his body doesn't wake up and his body doesn't have any type of pulse, he's basically dead for real. So the moment he starts to disappear, it's over for him. So that's what's going on. He's basically, Luna tells him in various different language, death. Now this is the part of the story that's very curious to me. Why would Luna tell him in various different language that he's going to die, using the word death in various different language? Why? Why not just tell him in that single language that he speaks? I'm suspecting that there are various different players involved in this. That this is not something simply that has to do with Luna or anything that's Luna. It has to do with someone that created this, allowed this, and that person has divine type powers, or individual group of individuals have divine type powers, or they know about something that Yingxue doesn't know about, or they're fascinated in his manhwas. That just a handful of people are fascinated in his manhwa. And those handful of people that are fascinated in his manhwa are people who have some type of ability or some type of power to make something that's fictional become reality. I don't know. I'm just guesstimating. I haven't dug deep into the story enough, but there are many different languages that pop up all at the same time. And it could have been just one language that was used to express the type of situation that he's in, but many were popped up. Or it could be just that for dramatic effect, death was represented to be many different languages. So he said, okay, Control Q doesn't work, so I'm going to Control Z this. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to undo, since I can't get the hell out, I'm just going to rewind as further back as I can. So it's like if you're using a Photoshop program, you press Control Z, you go backward, you go backward, you go backward. Anything that you currently have done or are going to be doing, you decide to undo it. And it go back as far as you possibly can until a certain moment within your story where you can actually control certain events. So he decided to Control Z things. And Luna says, oh, you want to Control Z? That's fine, we could do that. You can't get out because your body is dead. You can't Control Q, but you can Control Z. So he said, that's great. I'll be able to affect my manga, and the contents of readers of my manga will be able to see what new things I could create if I Control Z and go back. So whatever happens in this manhwa while I'm in here, I can rewrite the events within this manhwa while I'm in here to be presented real things that people are going to see when they're uploaded onto the web. So if anything that he's done recently within the manga that are present, that were uploaded, those things are now overwritten because he decided to control Z them. So he accepted the control Z, and um, Luna said, okay, fine, we're control Zing this, you're going back, but you can only control Z up to a number of 3 times. So he says 3 times, I can only control Z 3 times, yes. But you'll be able to increase your bookmarks, your likes, your subs, all that in the process if you're able to fix these issues. It says, I accept, fine, I want to restart, I want to control Z, these certain circumstances that have happened with me falling in here, fighting the Demon King, or the decision that I've made once I start to fight the Demon King, Mithea and stuff. Even though I cannot control Z and go outwards, I can control Z and go backwards in the story. So he controls Z and go backwards while he's in the manga itself. He can't control Z and reverse outside, only inside. So we see here it says you're restarting the main world of the manga. Of the Manhua. Not the main world of outside reality, the main world of what's going on inside of the Manhua. So he's restarting everything from his very first chapter inside of the manga. So he's basically starting from his first few pages of his very first manhwa works for the hero battles the demon king. So he says, why am I in chains? Why am I here? And he say, oh, it's obvious. You're here because we're slaves. And he said, yeah, I remember this. This was part of my very first chapter of my very first works for the human versus human battles the demon king. So this is Ash's very first appearance that he made within those very first pages. And this gentleman here, he calls this gentleman Uncle Ben. And it's very amusing that he used this gentleman and call him Uncle Ben, because that's the name of Spider-Man's uncle, Uncle Ben. So in some cases, I guess the guy who created, or girl who created this manhwa, is taking some inspiration from Spider-Man in that sense. And it could be, there are other things that are also factor in as well. But for right now, in the situation, he's using the name of Uncle Ben. So this Uncle Ben is supposed to represent a character that's attached to Ash that they knew from quite a long time. And Ash's name as well is something that's associated to American pop culture, like Ash from Evil Dead Ash. I'm not sure if it's the Ash from Evil Dead. It could be another Ash, but that's the Ash I remember. So this is Uncle Ben. His name is Uncle Ben. That's what he's called inside of the Manhwa. And he's a slave, just like Yingyu is right now. But technically, Yingyu is supposed to be Ash. So Ash was supposed to be here with this chain on, not Yingyu. So he's wondering what the hell's going on. He's wondering for quite some time. So he's now forced to do work. And he's asking, like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I'm doing the exact things that Ash was supposed to do. And then Luna came out of nowhere and says, yes, that's because you have now replaced Ash, and you are now Ash. And he said, wait a minute, this is BS. How the hell can I be Ash? I met the guy. The guy's dead. Yeah, that happened. But I was present in front of him. So if I do the Control Z, I'm not going to take the guy's place. I'm just going to rewind into meaning the guy in here rather than be the guy. He says, well, what the hell is going on? You know what? I'm going to keep things to myself. I'm not going to say certain things to Luna, but Luna says, well, it doesn't matter if you keep things to yourself. In your comic book, whatever you say is a comic book itself. You're not in reality where you keep certain things in your mind. You keep it to yourself and no one could see. In comic book reality, when you say certain things in your mind, they're physically expressed within a box or within a bubble. And he's saying, oh, so you're actually telling me around this position there's a black narrative box with a white outline with my thoughts written in it, which there is, because he just said it. And Luna says yes. Okay, so everything is no point for him to keep anything secret because they're being said anyway, because it's basically his life is playing out like a comic book. So he said, okay, So basically, viewers are actually seeing me saying these things. So that's the little hook with regards to this manga as well. So as the person who made this manhwa made it, they made it from the point of view of someone watching them, making their manhwas, doing these things while inside there. It's very interesting stuff. Next one, he decides to, okay, I'm going to do something dramatic. I'm going to jump through this hole in the floor, and I'm going to go down here and try to escape on my own. Of course, Uncle Ben told you, you're crazy, you're going to fall to your death. He said, I already know the outcome of what's going to happen in the first chapter. So if I die, I'm taking the risk, but it's most likely I'll be alive because things are playing out based on certain events not going the way they typically are going to be going. They're going to be going the way I need them to going so I could get more views and more likes, so on and so forth. Um, but what he doesn't know, what Ash doesn't know, I mean, what Yingyu doesn't know, is that while he is in his own mind and doing his thing in his own place, the actual comic book itself, and this is another reason why I like this, the actual comic book itself is also doing its own thing. So the whole time you are thinking, well, actually, Ying Yi is in charge of all this. This is his mind who's making up all this, or maybe he decides he wants to take the place of his hero Ash and do Ash's job, or go into this world and all this. It's like, no, actually, comic book itself is also doing its own thing, being its own sentient in a way, separate from Yang Yu's own mind. And it revived Ash from the dead and brought him back to life. So Ash is now alive, I guess not by the consent of Yang Yu, simply by the consent of the Banwas itself. So I think that's where some strange things are going to be amiss. That's why I said it might not be 100% Yang Yu under control of everything that's going on here, because he didn't request for Ash to be revived back to life. All he said was, it's preposterous why I'm taking Ash's place, and it's Ash is supposed to be doing all this. So either his words are command for wanting certain things to happen, or certain things aren't allowed for him to happen, but they're going to be happening anyway without his consent, such as Ash being revived. Like you see Ash being revived, he's not revived within being on the ground inside of the demon castle. He's revived in this voided space because he was basically Thanos snapped. So he's now been revived in this empty area because there's nowhere for him to be anymore because those areas have been Thanos snapped. So he's just forming back into the original era that he got voided snapped, but there's nothing for him to land in or on. So apparently he's probably going to be floating in this empty area for quite some time until he finds a way to get through a portal or something and enter back into the regular comic. Very interesting stuff. So that was pretty much the end, the last of all three of these things. And that was the end of my three reads for the month of August 2023. And now going back to just evaluating it from real quick, real fast. I'm knock it out real quick, real fast. Because even though I've been saying these things and going from beginning to end, I have to make sure I state the reason why these things are good and why you should check them out yourself. So from going from very beginning to the end of Hero. So you have the drawing. The drawing is good based on things related to manhwas. So these are typically how manhwas are drawn. Long face, long characters. They're not like mangas. They're sharp nose, sharp jaws. That's how it works. However, this is not 100% like regular manhwas. It's a little different. It's more kind of mixed Western influence as well. So it's different. It's a webtoon, so it operates the way a webtoon does. Go very vertically in order to express what it needs to do. So in that sense, it's good, but in other regular standard old-fashioned manga sense, it's not. So it's doing its own thing. The perspectives are good based on the position of everything, and based on the angle, you're seeing the demon king from the point of view of Tejas looking up, rather than just seeing it forward from someone who's not there. So you're supposed to do the whole worm's eye view thing. Going forward, however, the design of the characters are atrocious, not that good. Thea's face might be nicely designed, but the costumes and the outfits and the idea for the fashion of the characters doesn't look that good at all. So the design of outfits, armor, and stuff is very standard and very boring. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be interested if it was just based on costumes alone. So it's kind of atrocious in that sense, or kind of bland and plain. But everything else is fine. So the hero itself looks good. The drawing of the hero looks good. But clothing and things to represent characters are pretty much plain and bland. Perspectives or distance forwards looks good. Design of certain things looks good. And since this one is colored, the use of color, the use of shadows, the use of drop shadows, those also look good. Like the lighting from the top here to represent that there's a light above shining on him is great. And him sitting here, moving towards the table is also great because the light shining on him will shine on also on the chair with the wheels. And that will be showing based on distance from here going to there. So that is accurate as well. And this as well. But I think from the angle of this light, this one might have been bent. It should have been bent this way rather than go directly down, because it's at an angle. So these things would have, these light here, these areas here, coming from the wall or coming from outside, should have been angled more towards the left, just a little bit more towards the left. Whether this on the other hand is angled correctly, but as you're going towards the left and towards the far right, it's based on the angle of where this is. Yes, this will go down more, like will go straight down, but it will go straight down at an angle. So that's a little off. So that's the only takeaway I would say in regards to this in comparison to stage S and comparison to aliens area, is that when you put in certain things in perspective, it's done a little better in those than it's done in this. However, other things in perspective, such as the angle here of characters, is done well. So it's a little off and on, and that's where I would say it just falls like at least one or 2 points below that of aliens area, and maybe like 1 point, just 1 point below aliens area, 1 or 2 point below aliens area, because the actually design and drawing of faces and the body anatomy in aliens area is done a little bit better as well. So I would say 2 points off with regards to the overall artwork. Now here the artwork is done magnificently in comparison to both aliens area and stage S. Very interesting, very interesting. However, if it wasn't for the colors, if it was pure black and white, that might not be the case. But then again, if this was pure black and white, and here, it would still look interesting no matter how you look at it. So even if it was not black and white, it would still be interesting. Then moving forward even more, you get to show the characters on the close-up and the various different angles. That looks normal. So this character, this artist is good when like most artists are good when they're showing close-up shots. When it comes to distance shot or mid-level or distance shots, it's not that good, especially when it comes to objects. So this person is good at showing close-up, but not so good at showing mid to back level stuff. Like here for this and for this, it comes across as good because it's a very long distance. But once it goes like from there to like mid level, it's a different story. Or maybe it's just for the perspective angle of certain things that are missed. Like he can't like lock down certain things that are missed because he or she is focusing on other things. Yeah, but yeah, so overall it's good. I would say about 1 or 2 things that are off purely. But if you're into various different stories, I would check out both stage S, both Aliens Area, and a comic artist survival guide. So that's all I have to say with regards to this video. My eval for this this specific one, comic artist survival guide, this manhwa. I would say it's a 4.2, 4.1, 4.2, and Aliens Era was a 4.3, and Stage S is a 4.5. That's that's where I'm putting them. Stage S 4.5, Aliens Era 4.3, and this one, this Manhwa 4.2. No, 4.1. So they're still in the 4 categories, 4 out of 5 categories. So if you're in the 4 out of 5 categories, you're still good. You're still solid. So check it out. Check these out. And I'll call it a day on this. I'm talking a lot. And there's nothing else I want to edit. But if you were interested in anime ones, the next anime post, anime review will be next month, September. And the next manga post will be in December of 2023. I do this all the time, and I typically play gaming on these gaming channels and do the same thing I do for manhwas, and mangas, eval to see if it's worth it. And it was. Out of the 6, I picked those out of those 6 different type of mangas, manhwas, and manhuas, as well as certain webtoons. I pick these 3 because they make the most sense. They're very interesting, and they have stories that keep kicking forward and keep going the way I want them to go. So that's all I got to say. Like, sub, do your thing if you want to. If not, that's all I got to say. I'm not here to force anybody to do anything. So that's it. Check these out. These are very good. I got past. It's strange. I feel I got past the first 3 chapters fairly quickly. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more that was going on in Aliens Era. I wanted to know even more that was going on in Stage S. And I wanted to know just as much as what was going on with a comic artist survival guide. So these are things that are build up. Their build ups are very good. Even if you don't like their artwork, their build ups are good. So they're doing good things right here. That's all I got to say. I already said these artists' names, who they are. So you could check that out at the beginning. But that's it. That's all I got to say in this video. I don't want it to be a full 3 hours. 2 hours and 50 is more than enough.